This guy just pulled off the ultimate miracle, waking up from a decades-long coma in a cold hospital bed. Incredibly, he wasn't just asleep. He was found drifting 40 years into the future. Back in the day, Seo Mun-yeep wasn't just a soldier. He was a god-tier monster on the battlefield. When his squad was being pushed to the brink of annihilation, he didn't retreat. He charged into the abyss alone. The absolute terror on everyone's faces said it all. He left them with one final, cocky instruction. Just make sure you write a bestseller about my heroic legend. With a smirk, Seo Mun-yeep triggered a massive seal, locking himself and the enemy away forever. For decades, he lived a nightmare, waging a one-man war against an infinite horde of monsters. But after 20 long years of carnage, he finally opened his eyes back in the civilized world. The era had moved on, but time had no power over him. He hadn't aged a single day. Checking his status window, Yeep nearly lost it. Not only were his old evaluation and throwing skills intact, but he had also pilfered something even more broken. He had awakened an absurd S-rank skill, immortality. In a world where only the strongest survive, he had just become the one man who simply cannot die. Meanwhile, the rest of humanity was blissfully ignorant, going about their boring daily lives. They had no clue that they weren't the only apex predators on this planet anymore. A rude passerby bumps into a mysterious hooded figure, barking at him to watch his step. But beneath the surface, a hidden, ancient civilization was already thriving on Earth. The secret is finally out. The Burrowers, a race of subterranean humans, have emerged from the depths. Rising amidst a series of cataclysmic explosions, this underground empire declared war on the surface world. The sudden, brutal invasion of the Burrowers plunged the entire globe into a state of pure anarchy. In an instant, the human race found itself staring down the barrel of total extinction. Humanity tried to bite back, but their conventional steel and lead couldn't even leave a scratch on the invaders. The Burrowers possessed a mystical energy that rendered them untouchable. Tanks, jets, and missiles, all the might of modern warfare, were neutralized like they were mere toys. However, the tides turned when that strange subterranean energy began to mutate the human survivors. A new breed of humans emerged from the chaos, the Espers, gifted with supernatural powers. Armed with these newfound abilities, the Espers began the long, bloody grind to reclaim their world. One by one, they raided the underground dungeons, lighting a desperate flame of hope for a broken humanity. The climax arrived in the spring of 2005, when the portal to the final dungeon finally screeched open. The world's 7 most elite warriors stood together at the threshold. They stormed the Burrowers' main hive, dealing a killing blow to the heart of the enemy empire. When the dust settled, they were hailed as the 7 heroes, the saviors of the human race. Fame and fortune followed. They stepped out of luxury limousines into a blinding sea of camera flashes. The world showered them with endless wealth and glory, but one seat at the table remained empty. Seo Mun-yeep, the greatest among them, never made it back. While the others enjoyed the high life, the leader of the 7 heroes was immortalized only as a cold bronze statue. The survivors became global superstars, living the dream. The fallen hero became a myth, a martyr cast in metal, until now. Fast forward 17 years. The atmosphere in the Seoul International Battle Arena is electric and lethal. The French national team has just launched a devastating blitz against Korea. The Korean contenders are frozen, unable to keep up with the sheer speed of the assault. The announcer screams the name of the executioner, Nathan Bernard. He's systematically dismantling the Korean squad. The French ace slams his opponent into the dirt with effortless cruelty. Nathan has just secured a staggering 6-man kill streak, all by himself. A veteran observer watches the screen in disbelief, wondering if a beast like this has ever existed in the league's history. Commentators are losing their minds, calling Nathan one of the 3 great monsters of the modern era. The Korean side is down to their last hope, Baek Ah-yeon, but the odds look impossible. Refusing to back down, Ah-yeon charges straight into the teeth of Nathan's defense. She lashes out with her signature whip, a desperate frontal strike against the French powerhouse. The crowd holds its breath as the coach watches on, his knuckles turning white. Ah-yeon pours everything in her strike, but Nathan doesn't even flinch. He smirks, admitting he expected more from the daughter of one of the legendary seven heroes. He scoffs that no matter how good she is, she'll never win with such a pathetic team dragging her down. With a lightning-fast countermove, the French ace sends her crashing into defeat. It's a total blackout for Korea. They couldn't take down a single opponent, and Nathan Bernard is crowned the undisputed MVP. The fans are in mourning, reminiscing about the golden age when Korean espers ruled the world with an iron fist. The coach realizes that while they were busy clearing dungeons, the rest of the world evolved while they stayed stagnant. For Coach Baek Han-jaeum, this wasn't just a loss. It was a soul-crushing humiliation. It's a disgrace to the legacy of Seo-mun Yeep and his own reputation. He grips the railing, his spirit broken. The analysts don't hold back, calling the match a pathetic display and imagining the public's absolute fury. The internet is on fire. Fans are demanding to know why a legend like Han Jaeum is wasting time coaching instead of fighting. The mob is calling for the entire team to be scrapped, claiming Ah-yeon is the only one actually worth a damn. One enraged fan screams that he wants a refund for the garbage he just witnessed. Baek Han Jaeum, once a savior of humanity, stares into the empty VR capsules, the weight of the disaster sinking into his bones. 3 matches as head coach, and 3 straight embarrassment for the nation. Ah-yeon disconnects from the battlefield, her face pale as she steps out of the module. She mutters that the fans are right. The rest of the team is just dead weight that needs to be cut. She wonders if the legendary Korean willpower died out with the previous generation. The coach walks the lonely halls, admitting their current talent pool is shallow and the true elites are long gone. Then he hits the bitter truth. The real legends didn't leave, they died. He stops dead in his tracks in the middle of the corridor. With a heavy sigh, he whispers the name of his old friend, Yeep. He looks up at a fading, dusty photograph on the wall. He can't help but wish his comrade were here to save them one more time. A staff member interrupts his thoughts, warning him that the press is waiting and they're out for blood. The coach just closes his eyes, bracing for the storm. He prepares himself to go out there and beg the nation for forgiveness. He pats the young man's shoulder, bitter that apologizing is the only thing he's good for now. He mutters that this team is soft. They have zero mental toughness and even less skill. His assistant tries to stay positive, saying they're just getting started and things will change. But the man insists that he ought to hand in his resignation right then and there during the interview. He walks toward the exit, thinking that unless a miracle like Seo-mun Yeep walking through that door happens, Korea is finished. He tells himself this is the only way out. He can't endure the shame anymore. This time, he's definitely walking away for good. Suddenly, his phone vibrates. It's the president of the association, expecting a lecture or a firing. He braces himself and answers the call. The president's voice is shaking as he asks, Han Jaeum, have you seen the news? Han Jaeum snaps back that he already knows they lost and humiliated the entire country. But the president shouts that he's talking about something else entirely, something impossible. The coach's heart skips a beat as he repeats the president's words. He fell from the sky. High above the city, a streak of light ruptures the atmosphere as a figure plummets from a portal. The figure slams into the ground like a meteor right in the heart of a crowded plaza. The shockwave from the impact sends people in Gwangwon Plaza scrambling in terror. Chaos erupts as citizens see a man in ancient, battered armor standing between the statues of Admiral Yi and King Sejong. He landed right next to the 3rd statue, the monument dedicated to the hero who died to save the world. And there, sitting in the rubble of his own broken statue, is the man himself, Seo-mun Yeep. The crowd freezes before erupting into a roar of his name. On the phone, the president is screaming in disbelief. Whether he's just dazed or completely tuned out, the guy is standing like a statue in front of, well, a statue built in his own honor. Slowly, the legend begins to lift his head, his gaze piercing through the confusion. The president breaks the silence with a bombshell announcement. Seo-mun Yeep has officially returned from the dead. Flashback time. We see Seo-mun Yeep alone, a single man standing against a tide of shadow-born nightmares. He braces his shield, absorbing a bone-crushing strike from a colossal beast without flinching. But the monsters don't stop. An endless sea of enemies surges forward, hungry for his soul. He tightens his grip, preparing for a bloodbath as the shadow creatures glare at him with murderous intent before launching their final charge. With a heavy thud, the dungeon gates slammed shut behind him, cutting off any hope of retreat. He glances back, confirming the grim reality. The doors have sealed themselves, trapping him in hell, facing an army of demons and their twisted master. He settles into his combat stance, ready to show them why he's the apex predator. From his dark throne above, the dungeon master watches the lone human with cold amusement. He roars for his minions to rip the hero apart. Then, in a flash, a man jolts upright in a sterile hospital bed, lungs burning for air. He's gasping, chest heaving as he sits on the edge of the bed, sweat soaking the sheets. A nurse hurries into the room, her voice trembling as she tells him he's finally come back to us. He clutches his head, his mind a fog, and rasps out, "Where am I?" The nurse tells him he's safe in the hospital. She asks how he's feeling, but he can barely process her words. His face is a mask of pure bewilderment as the reality of his surroundings sinks in. Then comes the shocker. The calendar doesn't say 2005. It's 2021. He's been gone for 16 years. Agitated, he grabs her arm, insisting there's a mistake. He was just clearing the final dungeon back in '05. The nurse sighs, realizing she needs to drop some heavy truth bombs about the world he missed. She reaches for the remote and switches on the TV, telling him to just watch. The news anchor is mid-segment, and the headline is enough to stop his heart. The legend returns. The report screams that the leader of the 7 heroes has miraculously returned after nearly 2 decades in the void. The journalist explains that he literally fell out of the sky and was found unconscious, but miraculously, he barely had a scratch on him. But the real kicker? Despite 17 years passing, the man on the screen hasn't aged a single day. Scientific experts are losing their minds, theorizing that some kind of space-time distortion kept him in a temporal stasis. As the report fades, he mutters in disbelief, 17 years? To him, 2005 felt like only a few days ago. The nurse nods, explaining that's exactly why the entire world is currently losing its collective mind. She gestures toward the window, warning him that a literal army of reporters has been camped out since he touched down. He looks down at the swarm of vultures with cameras and sighs. Some things never change, even after 2 decades. Then, he demands a mirror. The nurse scurries off to find one, sensing the urgency in his voice. She hands him the glass, asking if it'll do. He stares at his reflection, confirming the impossible. His face is still exactly the same as the day he died. He's technically 47, but he looks like a man in his prime. As he wonders if this world is even real, a sudden, terrifying thought hits him like a freight train. He turns to the nurse with wide eyes and asks the most important question, "Where's all my money?" The nurse breaks the news gently. According to his will, every cent was donated to a children's charity fund. In total despair, he clutches his chest and asks, "What about my luxury house?" She informs him that his mansion was preserved and turned into a public museum called the House of Seomun. Desperate now, he asks about his car. Sold at a charity auction years ago. He is left, completely and utterly devastated by the news. He realizes the bitter irony. He can't exactly live in a museum, so he's effectively a homeless pauper without a penny to his name. Seomun Yeep laments his own selflessness, wishing he'd been just a little more selfish before sacrificing himself. The nurse tries to comfort him, saying he's still a national treasure. Apparently, Mr. Beck has already been blowing up their phones, promising to be at the hospital any second. The nurse leaves him with his thoughts, telling him to hit the call button if he needs anything else. Even staring at his hands, he can't wrap his head around it. He decides he'll get the dirty details from Han Jiam later. Right now, he needs to see if his body still works. He closes his eyes and focuses, activating his signature skill, Scanner Eyes. This is the ability that made him an apex warrior. It allows him to tear down a target's stats and visualize their secrets. He doesn't just see a person's current combat prowess. He can see their hidden potential, the latent powers they haven't even discovered yet. This cheat code allowed him to power level faster than any other human on the planet. It's how he became a legend right out of the gate. He suddenly remembers a scrawny young man who once followed him around, begging to be his disciple. That kid was Han Jiam, the man who would eventually join the ranks of the 7 heroes. When Yeep first scanned him, he almost wrote the kid off as a total flop. But then he saw it, an ultra-high development ceiling that was off the charts. He took him in with a warning. I can't guarantee you won't die. The kid just nodded and promised to give his life for the cause. Back in reality, Yeep checks his own stats. His strength, agility, and speed are exactly where he left them. But then his jaw drops. His mentality stat is sitting at a staggering 110. That shouldn't be possible. Human limits are hard capped at 100. But that's not the only anomaly lurking in his status window. He notices a brand new skill listed in his arsenal, one he never had before: immortality. He's stunned. Skills like that are pure myths. He realizes new abilities only bloom under extreme life or death pressure. He concludes he must have awakened this divine power during that final, desperate struggle in the dungeon. A sudden bang at the door snaps him out of his internal monologue. A familiar voice shouts his name, Yeep, and he looks up to see a face from the past. Vek Hanjiam bursts into the room, looking older but unmistakable. Seomun Yeep stares at the man standing before him, the scrawny kid, now a seasoned veteran. His eyes well up as he asks, "Is that really you, Hanjiam?" Hanjiam can barely speak, choking out that his brother is finally, truly home. Yeep regains his composure and smirks, commenting that Hanjiam looks like he's gone soft and weak. Hanjiam wipes away his tears, laughing through the emotion, saying that's what happens when the world is actually at peace for once. Later, the two of them are standing on the hospital rooftop, the wind blowing through their hair. Yeep looks at his friend and asks if he's finally done leaking from his eyes. Hanjiam tells him to wait until he hits middle age. Tears just come out on their own. Yeep just scoffs, saying he's still in his prime. Then, Yeep leans in and asks the burning question, "Did you keep your promise?" Hanjiam looks confused, asking what promise? Yeep brings up the biography he requested, and the light finally goes on in his friend's head. He explains he hired the world's most famous fantasy novelist to ghostwrite the whole thing. Yeep raises an eyebrow, asking if the story starts with him being born from a golden egg or something equally ridiculous. It wasn't just a book. A documentary and a blockbuster movie turned him into a literal modern god. The plots were trash, but they went viral and broke global box office records. Yeep doesn't care about the fame. He explodes, venting about how he died in a dungeon only to wake up 17 years later in a world he doesn't recognize. He's not crazy, but it's a lot to take in, and to top it off, he saved the world and was rewarded with being a homeless broke guy. Hangyeom smiles, telling him to relax. That's what friends are for. He's got more than enough cash to take care of his old master. Yeep is impressed, noting the kid finally grew up. He asks if Hanjiam spent the last 17 years building a business empire. His friend explains he just lived off the massive dungeon bounties. After a while, you run out of ways to spend that much money. Yeep asks how Blockhead, like him, didn't manage to lose it all on some bad investment. Hanjiam admits he isn't that smart, which is why he hired a team of professionals to manage his wealth. Yeep asks if he's basically a rich bum now, but Hanjiam corrects him. He's got a very specific, high-pressure job. When Yeep asks what it is, Hanjiam reveals he's the head coach of the national Esper team. Yeep mocks his quiet delivery, questioning if he's actually a good coach, but Hanjiam tells him to hold that thought. He pulls out his phone, cues up a match, and tells his old master to just watch. Yeep stares at the screen, his eyes narrowing as he realizes. Wait, aren't these the same hellish dungeons we risked our lives to clear? To him, they look identical, but his friend explains it's a high-tech VR sport called Battlefield. Hangyeom details how they've digitized those nightmares, turning dungeon crawling into a team-based tactical sport for the masses. Once the war ended, they pivoted the world's elite warriors into this new industry, and now, it's the most popular entertainment on the planet. Yeep scoffed, muttering that it sounds like nothing more than glorified child's play. But Hanjiam turned serious, warning him that the modern pro players are absolute beasts on par with the 7 heroes and the Battlefield World Cup rankings. Now dictate the very pride and power of a nation. Curious, Yeep asks the burning question, so, where does Korea stand in the world? The question hits Hanjiam like a physical blow, leaving him visibly shaken. Yeep snaps at him, asking if he's gone senile with age, and repeats the question about Korea's global rank. He figures that since Korea gave birth to the strongest espers in history, they must still be dominating the leaderboards. With a heavy heart, Hanjiam admits the truth. Korea is dead last, and a glass in. Yeep's hand slips, shattering against the floor. A suffocating silence fills the room. Yeep finally turns his head, his voice dropping to a cold whisper. Tell me, when a great evil is finally purged, does the one who slew it simply become the next monster? Back in the car, Yeep stares at Han Jiam, demanding to know exactly how they let things get this pathetic. Han Jiam explains that's exactly how Korea became a bottom-tier laughingstock, leaving Yeep to wonder how such a fall was even possible. Seomon. Yeep realizes the truth. The cowards in high places feared the war heroes would challenge their authority, proving that politicians never change. Han Jiam nods, explaining how the government choked the battlefield with regulations just to control the strongest espers, himself included, and Yeep can easily guess the fallout. He realizes that any Korean esper with actual talent must have fled the country to find glory as athletes or coaches elsewhere. Han Jiam lets out a bitter laugh, swearing he should have snapped the legs of the greedy rats who tried to manipulate them. Yeep reminds him that instead of violence, he used his reputation to go toe-to-toe with ministers and presidents just to keep them from exploiting the weak. Glancing in the rearview mirror, Han Jiam sighs, noting they had to rebuild from zero and the current talent pool is depressingly shallow. He looks at Yeep, about to make a plea, but he's shut down instantly with a sharp, "Don't even think about it." Han Jiam complains that he didn't even get to finish his sentence, but Yeep already knows he's being recruited despite the older man's insistence that his prime shouldn't go to waste. Yeep fires back that it's not a waste. He officially retired from the Esper life in that final dungeon, but Han Jiam argues that it's just a game now. He retorts that he never asked for the burden of responsibility and asks if he looks like some selfless saint who fights for the public good. Han Jiam reminds him of the old days, how he fought just to survive, then to be famous, and finally asks him the ultimate question: can't you just do this for yourself for once? He paints a picture of the media frenzy, with headlines screaming about the savior of the world returning to lift Korea from the gutter, and how the entire nation would worship him. Han Jiam asks if he truly has zero interest in the game, and Yeep sighs, stating he has no desire to be a circus act for the amusement of bored citizens. Han Jiam sighs, realizing he can't force a legend's hand. He watches him in a long, contemplative silence, but then Beck. Han Jiam mutters that the country's potential isn't completely dead yet, making Yeep ask what he's talking about. He looks at him and says, "Because we still have stars like her." A massive billboard on the roadside flashes an image of the stunning Beck Ah-yun, and Yeep admits the girl is a real beauty. Han Jiam then drops the reveal: "That's my daughter." Yeep is floored, remembering Ah-yun as a tiny 6-year-old kid, but Han Jiam reminds him that 17 years have passed, and she's a 23-year-old woman now. He tries to act natural, noting that time flies, and he can still see glimpses of that little girl in her adult face. Han Jiam tells him to cut it out before things get awkward, and Yeep offers a quick apology. The car glides down the highway, disappearing into the dark of the night. They pull up to a sprawling, high-end modern estate. Han Jiam's wife, and Seon-hui, rushes out to greet them, calling out to her husband before turning to Yeep with a warm smile. She welcomes him back to the land of the living, and he quips that to him he's only been gone about a week. Yeep jokes that he's sure aged a lot in just 7 days, and Seon-hui laughs, calling him a hopeless fool. She tells her husband he must be exhausted from the drive, but he insists that chauffeuring a friend he thought was dead for 2 decades is the easiest job he's ever had. Watching the two of them, the reality finally hits Yeep. He actually made it out alive. He finds himself in a world of peace, free from the constant threat of war or dungeon breaks. Standing before the massive house, he wonders what a man out of time is supposed to do next. For starters, he decides to embrace the lazy life and hunts down the TV remote. Stretched out on the plush sofa, Yeep flips through channels looking for entertainment, but something on the screen catches his eye. He bolts upright, realizing they're airing reruns of the classic drama Stairway to Heaven, and he's thrilled because he never got to see how it ended. He pumps his fists, declaring that this is exactly what he's been waiting for. Yeep dramatically announces that this is the true reason he survived the hell of the dungeon. Han Jiam walks in just as Yeep declares his plan to binge-watch the entire series while burying himself in snacks. He adds that he's going to catch up on every single show he missed since 2005, leaving Han Jiam completely speechless at his friend's lack of ambition. Han Jiam rushes over, asking if he's seriously going to become a shut-in drama addict. Seomon. Yeep points out that he was told he could do whatever he wanted, and Han Jiam is forced to yield but Beck. Han Jiam yanks the curtains open, revealing the army of reporters outside who refuse to budge until they get their story. Reluctantly, Yeep drags himself off the sofa to peer outside. Beyond the glass, a literal sea of journalists is waiting to pounce. He turns back, scowling and calling them a bunch of annoying leeches. Realizing he won't get a moment of peace otherwise, he finally gives in. Seomon, Yi barks an order to Han Jiam. Round up the circus. We're holding a press conference tomorrow. He finishes by saying he's going to gather them all just to tell them to get the hell out of his life. The next morning, inside a massive auditorium, the room explodes with camera flashes, signaling the start of the most anticipated event of the decade. Seomon Yeep and Baek Han Jiam take the stage, while reporters whisper about how incredibly calm the legend looks. The host officially kicks things off as Yeep stands tall amidst the blinding strobe of lights. He grabs the mic and introduces himself, stating that as they can see, he's back, and that the whole situation is just as weird for him as it is for them. Han Jiam stands beside him, praying that Yeep keeps his cool and handles this professionally. But Yeep immediately goes off script, stating he's not grateful for the attention and that they should ask their questions fast so they can beat it. Han Guillaume realizes his friend hasn't changed a bit and quickly steps in to moderate the QA session. When asked how he escaped the final dungeon, Yeep bluntly replies that he has no clue. He just closed his eyes and woke up in a hospital bed. He denies having any memory of the missing years, clarifies he hasn't talked to the other heroes, and has zero interest in reclaiming his old fortune. He signals for the next question, pointing to a reporter in the back. The man asks if Coach Han Jiam has briefed him on the battlefield phenomenon, and Yeep confirms he's heard the pitch. Then comes the million-dollar question. Do you plan on stepping onto the battlefield as a player? The room erupts into frantic whispers as every reporter leans in for the answer. Han Jiam watches silently. This was the moment he knew was coming. Seomon Yeep doesn't hesitate. Zero interest. Not happening. The reporter pushes further, asking for a specific reason for the rejection. He simply repeats that he just doesn't care for it. But the journalist tries to provoke him, sneeringly asking if the legendary hero is just lacking the confidence to compete. Yeep stares at the giant screen behind him, then points at the reporter, saying the only thing lacking in the room is the hair on that guy's head. He declares that the battlefield looks boring and that he has no intention of being a dancing clown for their amusement. Yeep warns the crowd that he hopes their curiosity is satisfied because he's done being harassed. He gives a dismissive wave and turns to exit the stage. Han Jiam starts to wrap things up, but a voice from the back begs for one last moment. A reporter asks to squeeze in one final question before the legend disappears. He mentions that a top player named Gerald Walker recently claimed Yeep wouldn't even be in his league, and asks for a rebuttal. Seomon Yeep freezes for a second, then slowly repeats the name, Gerald Walker. The reporter explains that Walker is a superstar in the U.S., widely considered the pride of all tank-class players. Yeep asks with a smirk, so, is he the strongest in the world? The man clarifies that there are 3 gods at the top, Nathan Bernard, Roy Meyer, and Daniel Mans. He explains that while Walker is elite, he's not quite on the level of the top 3. Yeep lets out a long sigh, muttering that 17 years really did change everything. Then he turns back to the cameras with a message for Walker. Don't get cocky when you're not even in the top 3. He adds that if Walker really wants a piece of him, he should skip the game and come find him in person. Then Yeep points a finger at the lens and declares that he'll personally bury the guy in his own backyard, somewhere far away. The broadcast plays on a massive screen, catching the eye of a certain individual. Zucker, the Shark CEO of the player agency, shoots a glance at Walker. You caught that, didn't you? A massive hand tightens, effortlessly crushing the remote into a pile of plastic and wires. Walker growls good under his breath, his eyes burning with a primal, competitive fire. He barks an order to his staff, get my private jet ready. We're heading to Korea right now. The bombshell news hits. An official grudge match against the U.S. has been greenlit. Han Guillaume is frantic on the phone, shouting, how the hell did this get scheduled so fast? Yeep grumbles about the racket and shoos Han Jiam out to the balcony. Move it. I can't hear my show over your yelling. Once the noise settles, Han Jiam delivers the news. We have a showdown in 2 weeks. Yeep just shrugs it off, but Han Jiam loses it. This is your fault. Do you have any idea who Gerald Walker is? Yeep blinks, completely unfazed. Never heard of him. Is he supposed to be someone? Han Guillaume face palms. He's a guy you promised to bury in your backyard. Yeep finally connects the dots. He adds that Walker is fuming after that public call-out, but Yeep just scoffs, calling the guy a sensitive drama queen. Han Jiam sighs, explaining that since Walker can't fight Yeep directly, he's coming to slaughter the entire Korean team for revenge. Yeep rolls his eyes. What does that have to do with me? Tell that freak to get a life. Han Jiam clutches his forehead, feeling a massive migraine coming on. Yeep just pats him on the shoulder. Cheer up, buddy. I'll stay here and enjoy the peace while you go have your little fun. Suddenly, Yeep bolts upright, his eyes narrowing as he thinks about the upcoming national match. He leans in, curious. Wait, since she's a pro, does that mean Ayun is going to be out there fighting? Right on cue, Baek Ayun kicks open the front door and announces her return to her mother. Yeep nearly jumps out of his skin on the sofa. Meanwhile, in the foyer, Ayun's mom greets her, surprised her daughter finished practice so early. Ayun admits she sprinted home the second she heard Uncle Yeep was back. I've been dying to see him. Where's he? Her mother points toward the living room with a knowing smile. Yeep waves from the couch, but before he can even say hello, Ayun's eyes light up. She launches herself across the room like a missile, tackling him right back into the cushions. He wheezes that she almost finished what the monsters couldn't, but she just beams, shouting how much she missed him. Yeep softens, patting her head. I honestly thought you'd have forgotten your old uncle by now. She scoffs, reminding him he was the cool uncle who always snuck her the candy her parents banned. He marvels at how much she's grown, and she reminds him that the little girl is now a 23-year-old warrior. Ayun asks if he's back for the big match, but he insists he only came for her. The game is just background noise. She scoots closer on the sofa, her expression turning serious as she starts to probe. She asks if the rumors are true, that he's actually refusing to play Battlefield. Yeep eyes her suspiciously. Did your dad send you to play the cute niece card? He shuts it down. I'm not interested. Ayun pouts, demanding to know why, but Yeep just shrugs. Your uncle is a very busy man with a lot of resting to do. She grabs his arm, trying her best puppy dog eyes, but he doesn't budge. She huffs, you've changed. Yeep fires back with a smirk, no kid. The world is what changed. I'm exactly the same. She turns away, grumbling about how he used to do anything she asked, but he reminds her she only asked for chocolate back then. She turns back with a clever grin, asking him to at least walk her to her avatar's sink at the league. Yeep is lost. What's an avatar? He glances at his precious TV, ready to decline, but Ayun goes full-on begging mode. She whines that her dad is way too swamped to go with her, leaving her all alone. Yeep finally cracks, a small smile breaking through. All right, Fine. Where are we heading, princess? She just winks. You'll see when we get there. They arrive at the high-tech fortress of the Korean Battlefield Association and are greeted with a formal bow. A guide leads them down a sleek, futuristic corridor that looks straight out of a sci-fi flick. Yeep and Ayun follow the staff, taking in the impressive scale of the facility. One of the technicians informs them they're starting with Ayun's avatar calibration, and she gives a sharp nod. The system hums to life, scanning her weapons and armor to perfectly mirror them in the digital realm. Ayun slides on the Neuralink helmet and whispers, "Initiate connection." In an instant, her digital self materializes in a vast, glowing virtual arena. From the safety of the control room, Yeep watches the monitors, curious to see what she can actually do. She calls out to the system, "Spawn a monster. I need to test my mobility." A massive, snarling dire wolf ripples into existence right in front of her. Yeep's eyes widen as he watches the screen. You're telling me this is all just code? It looks too real. The tech explains that Battlefield uses 1:1 VR tech to recreate every sensation of a real dungeon. Yeep mutters to himself that the simulation is scary close to the real thing. He leans in, deciding it's time to see if Ayun has actually inherited any of her father's skill. The virtual beast lunges, moving like a blurred streak of fur and claws. As the monster leaps, Ayun doesn't flinch. She readies her whip, her eyes locking on her target. She springs into the air with grace, narrowly avoiding the wolf's snapping jaws. Mid-air, her whip snaps out like a viper, coiling tightly around the creature's throat. With a violent, practiced yank, she slams the massive beast into the ground. Without missing a beat, she draws her sword and dagger, closing the distance in a flash. She delivers a devastating cross slash that literally cleaves the monster in two. She lands smoothly, watching as the digital corpse dissolves into pixels. The system chimes, avatar sync complete, connection terminating. Ayun pulls off the helmet. a triumphant smile lighting up her face. She runs over to Yeep, looking for approval. Well, what did the legendary hero think? He plays it cool. Decent, but you've still got a long way to go. Aye on smokes. Oh yeah? Why don't you show me how it's done? Yeep starts to back away, but she cuts him off. Come on, just an avatar setup. No big deal, right? She admits she's heard the legends of his power her whole life, but she wants to see the real thing with her own eyes. Her voice gets a bit soft. By the time I was old enough to understand what a hero was, you were already gone. She stares at him, her eyes full of genuine hope. The silence stretches between them. Yeep lets out a massive sigh, knowing he's just been cornered. Fine, you win. He agrees to one single test just to make her happy, and Ayun practically jumps for joy. The technician approaches, clearly excited to record data on a living legend. He starts to explain the protocol, measuring strength, agility, and mana capacity before the trial. But then he weighs it off. Actually, since this is off the record, we can skip the boring stuff and go straight to the action. Yeep asks if he can just go in as is. The tech laughs. You'd be empty-handed in a hoodie. Not a great look for a hero. He offers a selection of weapons, as two assistants struggle to carry a heavy-duty spear and shield over to him. Yeep picks them up, testing the weight. Feels light, different from what I'm used to. The tech explains it's the sports standard. With a shrug, Yeep says it'll do and steps into the high-tech testing pod. He tosses the shield back out. Just a spear. Let's get this over with. Inside the VR world, he feels the familiar hum of a dungeon entrance and readies his grip. The system works overtime, scanning Yeep's insane raw data to forge his digital twin. The technician's voice cracks over the comms. Can you hear me, Mr. Yeep? Yeep's avatar flickers into existence, standing in a perfect digital replica of the arena. He mutters at the sensation of loading and feels exactly like stepping through a real portal. The tech assures him the sync is perfect, while Ayun cheers him on from the booth. Yeep stretches his arms, sounding bored. Spawn something like what she fought. Make it quick. The technician hits the master button, and the arena floor begins to glow. A massive shadow begins to take form, far larger than the previous wolf. As the giant beast solidifies, the air in a room seems to get colder. Yeep's eyes sharpen instantly. A Salabon? You guys don't play around. The tech explains this is a special variant, one that can't be touched by physical force, only by aura. He adds proudly that they've used every bit of data to create the ultimate Salabon, the peak of virtual monsters. The beast screams and charges, but Yeep slips the attack with an effortless sidestep. He stares down the monster, his aura beginning to flare up. He looks at the high-tech spear, decides it's a piece of junk, and simply tosses it aside. He plants his feet, pulls back his fist, and unleashes a single devastating punch. In the control room, Ayun and the staff stand frozen, their jaws hitting the floor at what they just witnessed. The staff member stammers, asking if he seriously just flicked a world-class monster into oblivion, but Seomun Yeep just waves it off like it was nothing. The guy is in shock, muttering that Salabons are supposed to be high-tier threats, not speed bumps. Yeep yawns, asking them to spawn another victim so he can actually get a proper feel for things. As a new nightmare materializes, Yeep smiles, finding the perfect digital playground for his little experiment. He complains that the last one didn't even make him break a sweat, asking if they have anything that isn't made of glass. Suddenly, a booming voice echoes through the arena, hailing him as the world's greatest esper. Yeep's ears perk up as he spins around, recognizing the sharp tone of a foreign language. Back in the booth, the screens turn blood red as the system hits alert mode, leaving everyone panicking. The technician's fingers fly across the keys as he tries to regain control, but a massive warning flashes. Critical. Unauthorized breach detected. In an instant, the panel surges, throwing the man backward. Down in the pit, a massive warrior clad in heavy armor, wielding a colossal axe and shield, emerges from a pillar of fire. The intruder slams his weapon down, looking Yeep dead in the eye. So, legend, does that open invitation to fight still stand, or were you just talking big? Seomun Yeep remains dead silent, sizing up the mountain of muscle in front of him. The warrior lets out a mocking laugh, clearly trying to rattle him. What's the matter? Didn't expect someone to actually take you up on that burying offer so soon? He sneers, declaring he's about to prove the 7 heroes are just a bunch of overhyped relics from a forgotten era. With a roar, the warrior charges, moving with a speed that defies his massive size. Yeep doesn't move a muscle, his eyes tracking the incoming strike with icy precision. The axe slams into the ground where Yeep stood, the shockwave shattering the virtual stone and the warrior's own shield. The intruder growls, looking around frantically. Where the hell did he go? A cool voice drifts from directly behind his head. Looking for someone? Are you scared already? Yeep flickers into existence, looking bored as he leans back. He picks up his discarded spear, noting that finally, this might actually be a decent warm-up. He shifts his weight, sliding into a lethal, low-profile combat stance. The two predators lock eyes across the arena, the air crackling with murderous intent. Up in the control room, Baek Ah-yun is frantic, demanding to know who crashed her uncle's session. A calm hand rests on her shoulder, telling her to take a breath and watch. The heavy blast doors hiss open, and all eyes turn to the entrance. Ah-yun and the staff spin around, stunned by the sudden guests. Baek Han-jaim strides in, revealing he's the one who let this happen, so everyone can stop tripping. Ah-yun recognizes the president of the association beside him, confused because he said he was swamped with meetings. Han-jaim explains they'd already coordinated this high-level event, though the local staff was kept in the dark. Park Jin-tae, the vice president, turns to a woman in the shadows. Is this satisfying enough for you, Mrs. M.O.? Emma Missouri, the powerhouse manager for Gerald Walker, nods, thanking them for indulging her client's reckless request. In a brief flash of the past, we see Han-jaim and Yeep sharing a final meal before the world changed. Back in the present, Park Hyun-tae watches the monitors, his eyes glued to the clash. Everyone knows this is more than a fight. It's a high-stakes gamble. This is the spark meant to reignite Seomun Yeep's fire for the battlefield. In the arena, the air screams as steel meets steel at blinding speeds. Yeep's spear and Walker's axe collide in a shower of digital sparks and raw power. The sheer force of the impact creates a vacuum, sucking the air out of the immediate vicinity. Yeep is pushed back, his boots carving furrows in the ground, as Walker immediately winds up for another bone-crushing swing. Yeep recovers instantly, his eyes narrowing as he studies the American's movements. He blinks, and his vision shifts, scanner eyes activated. A translucent blue window floods his vision, stripping away Walker's secrets. The stats are insane. Strength and durability are literally capped out, the ultimate build for a tank. Yeep whistles under his breath. This guy isn't just a loudmouth. He's a legitimate monster. Walker sneers. What are you doing, old man? Staring at my stats won't save you. Yeep just grins, finally admitting, all right, I'll give it to you. You're actually strong. As he evaluates Walker's raw power, something clicks in his mind. It's time to test that gift he brought back from the brink of death. He decides to treat this American powerhouse as a lab rat for his new immortality skill. Yeep explodes forward, his spear becoming a blur as he pierces through the sound barrier. Walker plants his feet, timing his counter perfectly, but Yeep suddenly halts his momentum, his face inches from the axe's blade. Walker freezes, confused by the suicide move. Yeep just stares into his eyes with a terrifying, playful intensity. Hey, you want to see something really fun? He slams his hand into the earth, and the resulting shockwave pulverizes the ground for meters around. In the booth, Ah-yun screams in terror as her uncle is swallowed by the explosion. Walker stands amidst the dust, baffled. Why didn't you dodge? Are you trying to get killed? He realizes Yeep didn't just miss. He stood perfectly still, welcoming the fatal impact. Yeep takes the full weight of the blow, the sound of breaking bones echoing through the arena. But then a massive countershock hits Walker right in the chest, sending him flying like a rag doll. The American is launched across the arena, crashing through pillars before hitting the wall. A crater forms where the attack landed, but something isn't right. Walker staggers up, spitting blood. How? You should be a corpse right now. A dry, ragged cough rings out from the center of the dust cloud. Man, this smoke is a pain. I can't see a damn thing, a familiar voice grumbles. The control room is silent enough to hear a pin drop. They're looking at a miracle. Walker stares, his face pale as he realizes he's looking at a ghost. Seomun Yeep walks out of the rubble, his body completely unblemished, asking if that was fun enough for him. He smirks, revealing his secret. It's called immortality. Pretty neat, right? Walker's jaw drops. No way. Nobody survives a direct hit from my axe. Nobody. Yeep explains that dying once was enough for him, so he brought back a souvenir, eternal life. The test was a total success. He watches as his skin knits back together in seconds, realizing that a fight with this on is just cheating. He looks toward the cameras, startling the technician who is just about to faint. He nonchalantly explains that he's basically unkillable now thanks to the final dungeon, leaving the staff completely baffled. Yeep decides that winning with a God mode cheat is boring, asking if they can just turn it off. Disable immortality, he commands. The tech, shaking, flips the switch on the panel. Yeep turns back to Walker, mocking him. Don't want you crying later that you only lost because I couldn't die. He taunts the American, making sure he has zero excuses when he eats dirt. Walker's pride snaps. He grips his axe until his knuckles turn white and storms forward. Yeep tosses his shield aside, laughing that the rumors about Walker's ego were true, but his hands never leave his spear. He admits Walker is much faster than the scout said, but he's still a step behind a legend. Walker roars, I'll be the judge of that. Get up and fight me like a man. Still in a relaxed crouch, Yeep tilts his head. Maybe try beating the top 3 first before coming for the king. He digs the needle in deeper, reminding him that he's currently just a 4th-place loser. Walker lunges with a murderous overhead swing. Yeep slips it, asking, did I hit a nerve? The American warrior takes to the sky, aiming to crush Yeep from above. Steel clashes with steel as a flurry of blows rings out, spear and axe dancing in a lethal rhythm. Walker lands, swinging wildly to catch his breath. He blinks, and the space in front of him is empty. Yeep has vanished again. Behind you, slowpoke, Yeep whispers. Walker spins around, his eyes wide with panic. But it's too late. Yeep thrusts his spear over his own shoulder with surgical precision. The blunt end of the spear slams into Walker's face with the force of a wrecking ball. As Walker is sent tumbling through the air, Yeep twirls his spear, his expression turning cold. He gives credit where it's due. Walker reacted fast for a guy who's about to lose. But Yeep is done playing around. It's time to put the American to bed. He draws in a deep breath, focusing his aura for the final, finishing move. In one fluid, explosive motion, he launches the spear like a heat-seeking missile. The projectile slams into Gerald Walker's shield with a bone-rattling impact. The force is so immense that the weapon shatters against the far arena wall after being deflected. Yeep turns his back on the destruction, a cocky smirk playing on his lips. Walker hits the dirt hard, using his shield to stabilize his trembling body. He realizes the spear's trajectory shifted at the final microsecond, a terrifying display of Yeep's god-tier control. Yeep spreads his arms wide, ready to claim his flawless victory, but Walker drops to one knee, panting that the war isn't over yet, while Yeep coolly retorts that he only missed on purpose. The American just stares up at him, his mind reeling from the sheer gap in their power. Yeep gives him some free advice. Ditch the oversized door and stop trying to play the textbook tank. He explains that the massive shield is actually his biggest weakness because it's blinding him to the real flow of battle. Walker flinches as Yeep hits the nail right on the head regarding his limited line of sight. Yeep deduces that the shield was meant to buy time to scout the field, but points out that such a basic tactic is a death sentence against a pro who knows how to exploit every blind spot. He suggests that switching to a compact shield would be the only way to evolve his game in the long run. Walker snarls, asking if this is just another way to mock him, but Yeep bluntfully notes that advice or not, he'd still win. Walker grinds his teeth, deciding he's got nothing left to lose by listening to the legend. Up in the booth, the staff watches the exchange on the monitors with bated breath. Han Jiam is floored. Yeep actually gave tips to a potential rival, and a dangerous one at that. Yeep starts walking away, muttering that his work here is done and he's got dramas waiting for him. But he stops and glances back at Walker, who is still burning with an intense, lingering gaze. Yeep rubs his fingers together, jokingly demanding a consulting fee for the world-class lesson. Walker agrees to pay any price, but he's got one major condition of his own. Yeep raises an eyebrow. Oh, and what would that be, big guy? Walker demands a formal rematch in the official international game scheduled in 2 weeks. Yeep shuts him down instantly, repeating that he doesn't give a damn about the sport or the prize money. Walker grabs his shoulder, pleading for him to name his price just to step onto the field, but Yeep tells him to get lost. The tank steps closer, vowing that their next encounter won't end the same way. He insists it's a crime for Yeep to hide such monstrous power, but Yeep just shrugs, saying his life is his own. The two powerhouses stand their ground, locked in a tense psychological stalemate in the center of the arena. The control room crew can only watch the sparks fly between the two titans. Park Hyun-tae watches the feed in silence, a calculating smile spreading across his face. He decides right then and there to turn this rivalry into a goldmine. Meanwhile, a woman is glued to the TV back at the house, completely absorbed in a dramatic scene. Yeep is right there beside her, leaning in and shouting questions at the screen about the characters' tragic fates. But just as the tension peaks, the screen cuts to a breaking news bulletin. Yeep leaps up, cursing at the TV for ruining the best part of the episode. The anchor announces that while Yeep originally declined the battlefield, a leaked video of his clash with Walker suggests otherwise. Yeep's jaw drops in confusion as the reporter credits an anonymous source for the explosive footage. The U.S. team's outrageous demand is aired. They want Yeep to play in a friendly if they sweep Korea 11-0. Then comes the kicker. The news reports that Seomun Yeep has already graciously accepted the terms. I did what? He roars, standing up and wondering when he ever signed his life away. Over at the Korean Battlefield Association's fortified headquarters, the president's office door is practically kicked off its hinges. Yeep storms in, demanding an immediate explanation for the media circus. He marches up to Park Hyun-tae's desk, ignoring the frantic secretary trying to hold him back. He demands to know which rat leaked the video, swearing he'll bury them in the backyard for real. He shoves his phone in the president's face, fuming that they edited out the part where he told Walker to take a hike. While Yeep vows to find the snitch, the president slowly rises from his mahogany chair. Park Hyun-tae gives a deep, formal bow, offering his sincerest apologies for the misunderstanding. He claims his hands were tied by the U.S. Association and the relentless pressure from a public hungry for a hero. Yeep sees through the act, but is still hesitant to fully commit to the trap. Hyun-tae places a reassuring hand on his shoulder, telling him to just stay calm. He claims he actually made a plan to protect Yeep's peace by setting an impossible bar for his entry. He explains the bet. Yeep only plays if the U.S. wins a total victory without losing a single man. He promises that won't happen. Yeep explodes again, asking why everyone is so obsessed with dragging him back into the spotlight. But the president insists the condition is a safety net since the U.S. clearing Korea with 0 casualties is unthinkable. Hyun-tae suddenly grabs Yeep's collar, switching to a desperate, personal plea for his old friend's help. He sweetens the deal, promising all the event's proceeds will go to Yeep's favorite children's home. Just this once? Yeep is visibly annoyed, but the mention of the kids and their long history together starts to soften his resolve. He finally grunts a fine, but warns it's a one-time-only deal. In his joy, the president nearly tries to plant a kiss on him. Yeep shoves him back with a look of pure disgust. Watch it, old man. He reinforces the rule. If even one American player dies in the game, he's staying on the couch. Hyun-tae nods vigorously, a triumphant sparkle in his eyes as he promises to honor the pact. With the deal signed in blood, almost, the president offers to buy a celebratory dinner and leads them out. He starts raving about a premium tuna sashimi spot, but as they walk away, his expression shifts to something much more serious. He fully intends to make this happen. On his desk, a hidden simulation report shows Korea losing every single scenario. He's already played them all. The news cycles immediately confirm that the legend has officially accepted the American challenge. Every channel is buzzing with the same story. Seomun Yeep is officially back in the game. The hype for the upcoming rank, a showdown, reaches a fever pitch across the nation. At home, Yeep stares at his own face plastered all over the TV, complaining that his favorite show is getting bumped for his own life. He curses the old man for the headache and considers blocking his number. Then he gets genuinely ticked, realizing his drama slot was stolen by a breaking news report about himself. He walks to the window, sighing at his luck, when a sudden sound from the yard piques his interest. He peeks through the blinds to see what the commotion is about. Someone is out there on the private training grounds, putting in work. A figure blurs past a training cone at breakneck speed. It's Ayun, pushing her limits under the watchful eye of a trainer. Yeep watches from the shadows, his eyes narrowing as he evaluates her form. The trainer fires the high-velocity ball her way, and she snatches it out of the air with her weapon in a display of lightning-fast reflexes. He realizes it's not just a trainer. It's her father, Han Jae-am, leading the session. Han Jae-am praises her reaction time, but barks that she needs to be even faster if she wants to survive the U.S. assault. Yeep strolls out onto the grass, teasing Han Jae-am for being such a slave driver. He discreetly activates his scanner eyes to get the real story. The status window for Baek Ah-yeon pops up, detailing her raw power. It lists her core abilities, high-level teleportation, and expert-grade rope skills. Yeep's analysis shows her agility is already hitting its ceiling. She's as fast as she's ever going to get. He realizes that while she's good, her growth potential is actually lower than her dad's was at the same age. However, he spots a hidden detail. Her endurance and strength could actually surpass Han Jiam's, meaning her dad is training her all wrong. Ah-yeon collapses onto the grass, gasping for air and begging for a 5-minute break. She spots Yeep and jumps, while he bluntly tells her that at this rate, the U.S. team will eat her alive. He circles her like a hawk, analyzing every detail of her physique. Ah-yeon asks if he saw her speed, but Yeep tells her that chasing more agility is a waste of time. Han Gi-yeon protests, arguing that she just needs more drills to break through to the next level. Yeep turns to his old friend and tells him flat out, Ah-yeon isn't you. Stop trying to clone yourself. He orders him to stop the speed training immediately, explaining that she's already hit her physiological limit. He points out that her agility and whip work are already maxed out. Pushing further is just grinding her bones to dust. Yeep breaks it down. Just because she's got speed skills doesn't mean she should fight like her old man. They are fundamentally different beasts. He turns his gaze toward Ah-yeon, who's looking back at him with wide, curious eyes. He asks her what her next move is after snaring an enemy. She says she'd pull them off balance or toss them to a teammate, but Seo-mun. Yeep shuts her down instantly. Wrong. You don't pass the buck. You finish the job yourself. He explains that mimicking her father's support style is a total waste since she doesn't have a heavy hitter to back her up. He snatches the whip and sword right out of her hands, vowing to show her how a real pro handles business. Watch closely, kid. It's easier than it looks. He strides toward a nearby training dummy with a predatory grace. In a blur of motion, the whip lashes out, perfectly snaring the target's neck. He explains the secret sauce. The second that whip connects, you don't wait. You close the gap like a lightning strike. Before they can blink, he draws the sword and cleaves the dummy clean in half. He turns back to the stunned father-daughter duo. Got it? Or do I need to draw you a map? The two stand there in dead silence, staring at the decimated dummy. He drills it into her. A whip alone won't kill anyone. If she wants to be a legend, she needs raw strength and elite swordsmanship. Yeet manually adjusts her into a lethal close combat stance and barks at Han Jiam. You catching all this, coach? He suggests starting her off with 500 strength reps, his sheer presence making the two of them break into a cold sweat. He doesn't give them a choice, ordering them to start those 500 reps right this second. He drops a reality check. They've only got 14 days until the Rank A showdown at the U.S. national team's hotel. Across the ocean, a man named John Kim is raving about how much Gerald Walker has leveled up in just a few days. Yeep officially declares himself Ah-yeon's new personal coach, taking full control of her training. Walker asks if the gap between him and the elites is still that massive, and his agent nods. Jong Kim admits he thought Walker was losing his mind when he swapped shields after meeting Yeep, but seeing him now, it's clear he's finally found the key to crushing his weaknesses and breaking into the top 3. The agent warns him that adapting to speedsters like Nathan will be a nightmare, but the payoff is huge. Walker then asks, exactly how much is this advice worth in cold, hard cash? And John Kim clocks it at $10 million minimum, a massive leverage point for his next contract if he masters the style. The number 10 million echoes in Walker's head like a siren song. Seeing a news segment about Seo-mun Yeep on the TV, he doesn't hesitate. Send him $10 million. Right now. His agent is flabbergasted, but Walker just grins. It's a consulting fee for the man who unlocked his potential. He reaches out toward the screen, swearing he'll drag the legend onto the battlefield, one way or another. He leans against the wall, whispering to the image of Yeep to wait just a little longer for their real dance. The atmosphere is electric as the match kicks off at the Seoul International Battle Stadium. The long-awaited day of the Rank A clash between Korea and the USA is finally here. The commentators open the broadcast, acknowledging the thick cloud of anxiety hanging over the Korean fans. They hype it up as the dream match that will be decided today. Then, they roll out the full Korean roster as the Warriors step into the spotlight. The camera pivots to the opposing side, showcasing the powerhouse United States squad. Baek Ah-yeon is introduced as the frontline striker and the undisputed ace of the Korean team. Opposite her stands Gerald Walker, the literal mountain of a tank and the star player for the U.S. Yeep watches from the VIP stands while the announcers highlight Ah-yeon's debut in her aggressive new role. The camera pans over, catching a glimpse of Yeep's calm, unimpressed face. The battlefield is revealed, an ancient, crumbling castle swarming with undead skeleton guards. They'll be fighting through the Martha-born palace, a three-tier hellscape with a boss guarding every floor. The first roadblock in their way, the relentless skeleton warrior. On the second floor, they'll have to face the wrath of the Death Knight. And at the heart of the palace, the Bone Dragon and the Lich are waiting to end their run. For the rookies watching at home, the commentator quickly breaks down the high-stakes rules of the game. With a roar from the crowd, the Korean team charges into the arena. The U.S. team follows suit with cool confidence, leaving everyone wondering who will draw first blood. The announcer screams into the mic. The first set is officially underway. Both teams vanish into the dark maw of the dungeon. The U.S. team is immediately intercepted by a pack of rattling skeletons. Walker steps up, facing the monsters head-on without breaking a sweat. They start the cull with terrifying efficiency, and Walker pulverizes the first skeleton with a single blow. The commentators note that while the U.S. team isn't the fastest on their feet, their defense is an iron fortress that no monster or player can easily crack. Ah-yeon tightens her grip on her gear, her eyes sharp and ready for the signal. Suddenly, while everyone is talking about the U.S. defense, the Korean team pulls a shock move. They're sprinting at full throttle. The commentators are losing their minds. This strategy is completely unexpected. The Korean squad is literally ignoring the skeletons, weaving through them without stopping to fight. They don't even slow down for the mobs in the second zone, leaving a trail of dust behind them. Han Jae-am watches the live feed of his team's desperate dash, praying they can maintain this insane tempo. He knows this is a gamble, but if it works, they might actually pull off the impossible. The broadcast explains that Korea is ditching their usual slow and steady play for an all-in rush on the boss. It's a suicide mission, but if they bag the boss first, the point swing will be astronomical. Killing the boss triggers a collapse, sealing the first floor in minutes, which would leave the U.S. team's careful planning in total ruins. At that exact moment, the Korean team's icons flash. They've reached the boss's lair. Team Korea stands face-to-face with the first floor guardian, the skeleton warrior. Ah-yeon and Han Jae-am's teammates brace themselves for the fight of their lives. Back with the Americans, a player shouts for Walker to hold up. Something's gone wrong. Walker asks Paul for a status report while the Koreans are already engaging the boss. He demands to know what kind of unexpected situation could possibly disrupt their flow. The scout reports the unthinkable. The Koreans are speed-running the boss with a high-risk, high-reward gambit. A teammate suggests a mad dash to the second floor, but Walker decides to finish their current hunt before crushing the Koreans. He turns to a teammate, realizing he's too slow to make it on foot. I'm going to need to hitch a ride on your skill. The Korean team is seconds away from taking down the skeleton warrior. They surge forward, banking everything on Ah-yeon's final strike. The leader screams for the team to hold the line and cover her while she leaps, but suddenly, something massive hurtles toward her like a cannonball. She barely has a second to gasp before the impact hits. Walker slams into her at full velocity, sending her flying backward through the air. Her mind races in shock. How is he already here? The rest of the Korean team freezes, horrified by Walker's sudden intrusion. Han Jae-am realizes the trick. Walker used a teammate's propulsion skill to turn himself into a human missile. The impact is brutal, slamming her body hard against the cold dungeon stone. A chilling notification rings out. Player Beck Ah-yeon has been eliminated. Walker looms over the area, admitting their little boss rush plan wasn't half bad. But he asserts that against him, even the best plans are destined to fail. The rest of the U.S. squad caught up, flanking the weakened skeleton warrior. They move in for the kill, effortlessly mopping up the boss the Koreans worked so hard for. The system echoes, first floor boss defeated. Area closing in 10 minutes. Walker looks at the remaining Koreans with a cold smile. Time to wrap this up. The Americans surge forward, hunting down the surviving members of the Korean squad like prey. The commentator can barely keep up. The U.S. team is wiping the floor with them in the blink of an eye. Korea's gamble has failed completely. They're facing a total team wipe. Walker raises his weapon, preparing to deliver the final, crushing blow. The last Korean player lies broken on the ground, unable to even lift a finger in defense. Walker looms over him like a god of war and declares that it's all over. The first set belongs to the USA. And up next, he delivers the finishing blow, cold-bloodedly wiping out the final survivor. The scoreboard flickers to life. USA dominates the first set with a soul-crushing 11-0 all-kill. Ah-yeon trudges down the dimly lit hallway, her heart heavy with the bitter taste of a familiar defeat. She stops dead in her tracks outside the locker room, lamenting their failure before tentatively peeking inside. She feels like garbage. Even after all that special training from her uncle, she didn't even get to trade blows before being sent back to the lobby. Suddenly, a sharp voice demands everyone's undivided attention. Ah-yeon gasps, stunned by the sight of her uncle taking charge. Seo-mun Yeep snarls that watching their pathetic performance nearly gave him a brain aneurysm, so they'd better listen up if they want to survive. When a player tries to protest that Han Jae-am is their official coach, Yeep shuts them down with a single icy glare. He scoffs, explaining that if they keep playing like clowns, he'll be forced to get off the bench and do their jobs for them. He pulls no punches, telling the team they try to play the hero without the raw talent to back it up, leaving their average skill levels in the dust. He declares flatly that with their current strategy, their mathematical chance of winning is a big fat 0. But he mutters that it would be a disgrace to go down without drawing blood, so he's going to show them how to make Walker crawl. Seo-mun. Yeep begins the briefing, noting that Martha Bourne Palace was his personal playground back when he and the association director were rookies. He reminisces that the dungeon itself was a breeze, though the third-floor skeletons were always a royal pain in the neck. But looking at their mid-tier skills, he mocks that reaching the third floor would be a miracle, so they need to focus on the mistakes they just made. He admits that the rush the boss plan from the first set wasn't actually a bad idea. Of course, that only applies if the players aren't too incompetent to actually pull it off. Pointing a finger at the team, he starts dissecting the failures of the frontline vanguards. He roars at them for charging blindly into the boss room without even bothering to scout the enemy's formation. He barks that the back line should have provided instant cover the moment the front crumbled, but they all froze like deer in headlights when Ah-yeon fell. The reason they keep getting humiliated 11-0 is simple. They haven't even mastered the most basic ABCs of combat. He shakes his head in disgust, wondering how this circus is considered a national team and pitying Han Jae-am for having to manage them. Seo-mun Yeep turns his back, declaring that the first set is dead and buried, and there's no point in crying over spilled milk. He cuts straight to the chase, telling them to open their ears because he's about to drop a game-changing strategy for set 2. The second set kicks off. The moment the gates open, the U.S. team splits into 2 tactical squads and surges forward. They deploy a classic 6-5 split, with their speedsters racing to lock down the home field advantages first. Walker takes command of the second group, moving with heavy precision to begin the hunt. It's a textbook play designed to maximize every bit of their star players' overwhelming presence. In the stands, the crowd lets out a collective gasp as they notice the Korean team doing something completely bizarre. The commentator screams into the mic. Ah-yeon has vanished from the radar, only to reappear in a completely different sector. Suddenly, the entire Korean squad shifts gears, sprinting through the dungeon corridors like their lives depend on it. The analysts are baffled. Korea has always played it safe and defensive, but now Ah-yeon is leading a radical, high-speed offensive. Yeep watches the monitors with a satisfied grin, whispering, finally, they're actually using their legs. He doesn't take his eyes off the screen. The entire gamble rests on them following his crazy orders down to the last millimeter. Only then will they find the opening they need. Ah-yeon charges ahead, her eyes burning with the determination to rewrite the script this time. One of the U.S. scouts hits a corner and pauses to scan the area. He relays a message to Walker, reporting that the Korean team is nowhere to be found. They've completely ghosted. He figures that since there's only one real path, the Koreans must be hunkering down for a desperate late-game defense. To Walker, it's obvious they've panicked and scrambled their plans after the absolute slaughter of the first round. He stands his ground, confident that at this rate, it's only a matter of minutes before he forces Seo-mun Yeep into the game. Suddenly, a sharp crack echoes from the solid stone wall directly behind Walker. He spins around, eyes wide, demanding to know what that sound was. Then, the dungeon wall erupts in a violent, earth-shaking explosion. The entire Korean team burst through the clouds of rubble and dust, flying through the air like a pack of starving wolves. They hit the ground running, perfectly encircling the stunned U.S. squad in a pincer maneuver. The Americans are in total shock. Walker's mind is racing, wondering how they bypassed the main path. In a flashback, Seomon Yeep instructs the scouts to lead the charge, with Ah-yeon using her top-tier speed to confirm the enemy split. He continues, dropping a bombshell. They're to ignore the monsters and the boss entirely if Walker's group is vulnerable, leaving the players speechless. He mocks the common knowledge that Martha Bourne is a one-way street, revealing a secret passage with a hidden teleport node perfect for a backstab, and orders Ah-yeon to lead the way. The entrance looks like just another boring wall, but Yeep shows them the trick to seeing the illusion, a shortcut straight to the Americans' blind spot. He orders all 11 to storm that route and ambush the U.S. team while they're still split up and distracted by the hunt. Back to the heat of the moment. The Korean team pours out of the hole in the wall, hitting the U.S. rear with everything they've got. Ah-yeon descends like a Valkyrie, landing right in front of a bewildered U.S. player. And Seomon Yeep's battle order was crystal clear. If you want to bring down a giant like Walker, you don't go for the head, you take out his legs. In a flashback, Ah-yeon is skeptical, but Yeep explains that given the current setup, Walker's mobility is his Achilles heel. He details that switching to a smaller shield left his lower body wide open, and he hasn't spent enough time mastering the new balance. The pressure of the zero death clause, the sudden ambush, and the sheer terror of facing an awakened legend will be enough to make the U.S. team crumble. Seomon Yeep looks them in the eye and tells them to trust his instincts and follow the plan to the letter. In the present, Ah-yeon feels a surge of gratitude for her uncle's genius as she strikes. The Korean squad hammers the Americans before they can even process the ambush, and Ah-yeon is suddenly wreathed in a golden light as the team supports dump all their buffs on her. Her teammates funnel every scrap of their mana, transferring their collective power directly into her. Like a streak of lightning, she lunges straight at Walker. But Walker is a beast. He parries the blow and counters, instantly deleting 2 Korean players from the field. But then he realizes it was a feint. She's already flickered past him using a high-speed teleport. Her real prey was the U.S. support line. She appears behind them, her blade a cold blur. The kill feed lights up. Baek Ah-yeon has claimed 2 heads. Walker grinds his teeth, realizing the Koreans weren't after him. They were hunting his lifeline. He roars in fury, swinging his axe to down another Korean attacker. Having secured his 3rd kill, Walker barks into the comms for his vanguard to drop everything and fall back now. The numbers are grim. 3 Americans are trapped against 8 vengeful Koreans, and the rescue team is miles away. 1 U.S. player desperately parries a flurry of strikes. Another uses a defensive skill to barely survive a lethal hit. But Walker scoffs that this trash-tier team is just a warm-up, and goes on a rampage with his axe. He spins in a whirlwind of steel, taking out another opponent, racking up his 4th kill of the set. Ah-yeon doesn't flinch. She charges him again from his blind spot. He spins around to intercept her, but she isn't where his eyes expected her to be. She slides low, coming out of a roll to deliver a precision strike right to his unshielded leg. He let out a grunt of pain as the impact buckled his knee, and Ah-yeon darted away before he could counter. The pride of the USA is forced to one knee, hitting the dirt. The U.S. survivors are fighting like demons. A surprise attack catches one of them off guard. The Koreans use their overwhelming numbers, strategically sacrificing 7 of their own just to guarantee the elimination of 3 Americans. A final Korean player stands over the kneeling Walker. The tank looks up, asking if Seomon Yeep was the one who taught her that move, sensing the unmistakable fingerprint of a legend in her style. She doesn't answer with words. She simply levels the tip of her sword at his throat. He stares at the blade and lets out a dry laugh, admitting that was one hell of a play. The stadium erupts into total chaos at the massive upset while the scoreboard confirms 5 U.S. casualties. Han Jaeum sits in the dugout, completely stunned by the miracle he just witnessed. Yeep, leaning back with his feet up, asks if he's seen enough yet and promises that next time he'll help him actually bag the big trophy. The announcers are screaming, celebrating the fact that Korea just put on a legendary performance that no one in the world saw coming. Despite the heroic stand, The match officially ends in a 2-0 victory for the United States. The commentators lament that if the Koreans hadn't been intercepted by the returning U.S. vanguard, the world would have seen an even bigger shocker. Walker stands alone on the field, staring at the final score and realizing the sleeping giant of Korea has finally woken up. Check out the final tally for Set 2. The Korean squad went head-to-head with the American Titans and actually held their own. They pulled off a jaw-dropping 5 eliminations against the world's best. The casters are losing it, agreeing that the play of the game was Korea's Kool-Aid Man move, bursting right through that dungeon wall. And everyone knows there was one shadow operator behind this insane tactical pivot. She personally sent 4 out of those 5 Americans back to the spawn point. The crowd is going wild. Chant her name, the undisputed ace of Korea, Baek Ah-yeon. SBC sports reporter Oh Hygiene corners coach Baek Han-jaeum for the scoop. She asked for his take on their transformation during the match. She notes the national team looked like a completely different beast out there today. He keeps it professional, saying that while they took the L, the growth and fire it sparked in the team are worth more than a win. The reporter digs deeper. How did you dream up that legendary secret passage ambush in the second set? Han-jaeum chuckles, admitting it was a genius play since that dungeon was supposedly a one-way hallway to hell. Then he shifts his gaze, deciding it's time to give credit where it's truly due. He drops the bombshell. The team had a secret consultant drawing the blueprints for that second set. From the shadows of the arena, Seo-mun Yeep watches the broadcast with a skeptical look. He grumbles, realizing Han-jaeum is shamelessly baiting him in front of millions. It's obvious the coach hasn't given up on dragging him back into the professional spotlight. Ah-yeon takes the mic next, and the reporter doesn't hold back the praise. She's hailed as the match's MVP for impact, and the reporter asks what kind of monster training she's been doing. She beams, revealing her uncle has been putting her through the ringer and that she's swapped roles on his expert orders. Yeep facepalms as he watches the live feed. He groans, wondering why both the father and daughter are intent on making him the center of attention. He sighs, at least they aren't lying. Suddenly, Park Hyun-tae sidles up with a smirk. The association president teases him, noting that Yeep still gets grumpy the moment he feels a little shy. Yeep points at the cameras. Shouldn't the big boss be over there, soaking up the fame? Hyun-tae shrugs, saying he'd rather leave the limelight to the kids. Yeep narrows his eyes. All right, what's your angle this time? Hyun-tae claims he's just feeling nostalgic, since only a handful of old-school legends even knew that secret passage existed. Yeep admits he ghost-wrote the Set 2 strategy, though he mutters that using cheats in a sport feels a bit dirty. He explains he chose the ambush over a direct clash because he didn't want to lose the bet and be forced onto the field. The president brings up how Yeep unlocked Ah-yeon's true potential, but Yeep just waves it off as basic observation. Hyun-tae stands tall, telling him that seeing a Yeep original strategy again was a thrill. He says Yeep's talent is a national treasure. Yeep doesn't argue. Well, I am pretty incredible. Glad you noticed. Hyun-tae leans in, the real trap finally set. So, how about putting that incredible talent back to work? Yeep scoffs. Check the scoreboard, old man. I won the bet. I'm off the hook. But the president plays his final card, promising to vanish forever if Yeep just does him one last favor. He mentions the Korean Pro League is about to kick off, and Yeep sees where this is going. You want me to sign on as a full-time pro? Dream on. Hyun-tae shakes his head. I'm not that crazy. I know you'd never agree to a grueling season. Instead, he proposes a star-studded charity match right before the season opener. A one-day-only legend showcase. He braces for the usual no, fully expecting Yeep to shoot him down. But Yeep pauses. I'll think about it. Hyun-tae's brain practically short-circuits in shock. He's stunned because thinking about it isn't in Yeep's vocabulary. Usually, it's a no before the sentence ends. He manages to keep his cool, while Yeep gazes out at the arena. Yeep admits that watching Ah-yeon's growth actually piqued his interest just a tiny bit. Dramas are great, sure, but they can't match the rush of a real fight. And with no more dungeons left, this is the only arena left for a warrior. Hyun-tae loses his professional mask, ruffling Yeep's hair like a proud older brother. That's the spirit, kid. He shoves his phone in Yeep's face. The clip of his duel with Walker just shattered 10 million views in 60 minutes. The counter is already hitting 11 million and climbing fast. The comments are a landslide of hype for Korea's return to form. Yeep pushes him away, telling him to stop acting like a fanboy. He notes the president's grip is still surprisingly strong. Hyun-tae apologizes for the hype train, but Yeep stops him cold. I said I'd think about it. Don't go printing the tickets yet. Huuntai shims anive. Thinking about it is as good as a yes in his book. Yeep gets suspicious. Wait, the Pro League is starting any day now, right? He calls out the timing. A charity match this close to the season opener reeks of a marketing stunt. Hyuntai's nervous laugh confirms he's been caught. Yeep smirks. Fine. If I'm doing this charity gig, I got a list of demands. Hyuntai leans in, ready to offer the moon on a silver platter just to get the legend back in the game. The president vows that if Yeep steps onto that digital battlefield, his wish is the association's command. With a devious smile, Yeep seals the deal. Cut to the training grounds. Han Jiam arrives, looking like he's ready for war, sword gripped tightly in his hand. He marches toward Yeep, who's casually balancing a spear across his shoulders. Yeep explains the deal. The president caved on every condition, so he's officially in for the charity match. He jokes that he was ready to retire into a life of binge-watching TV, but duty, or boredom, called. Han Jiam steps up. If we're doing this, we're doing it right. Yeep agrees. If he's going to step back into the arena, he needs his body to remember how to kill. Yeep trashes the current state of national team training, and Han Jiam can only nod in humble agreement. The coach wonders why he has to suffer through the drills too, since he thought Yeep was the star of the show. Yeep grins wickedly. I'm not suffering alone. Besides, Ayun is the only one worth a damn on your roster. Han Jiam begs for mercy, reminding him he hasn't been in a real scrap for 17 years. Yeep isn't hearing it. He promises to grind Han Jiam down until his combat instincts are sharp enough to cut glass. The veteran coach sighs, but there's a spark of excitement in his eyes as he listens to his old friend. Yeep blinks, and his vision turns surgical, scanner eyes on. He begins a deep dive analysis of Han Jiam's current power levels. He notes the rust is heavy, but the core foundation of a hero is still there. Recovering his prime stats won't be impossible. Yeep flashes a grin that would terrify a monster. Starting tomorrow, you're going to wish you were still in the dungeon. Han Jiam's soul practically leaves his body. He knows he's officially entered a world of pain. Flashback. Yeep's two non-negotiable terms. 1. He plays on Ayun Squad. 2. Han Jiam has to dust off his gear and join them. The president's eyes turn into dollar signs. 2 of the original 7 heroes on one team? The sponsors will be throwing money at them. He immediately jumps on a call to start pulling the strings for the biggest event of the decade. The news leaks like wildfire. Seomun Yeep and Han Jiam are returning to the field alongside the new ace, Ayun. The world starts holding its breath as the countdown to the charity match begins. Back at practice, Yeep critiques a move. If you're using a trick, you better be faster than the guy you're trying to fool. He scolds Han Jiam for being sluggish, and the old pro grumbles, but pushes himself to find that extra gear. The coach readies his stance and explodes forward, lunging at Yeep with a series of high-speed sword strikes. Yeep dances back, his reflexes returning to him in waves as he avoids the bite of the blade. He catches the final blow on his shield, the sound of clashing metal echoing through the field. The two legends exchange a flurry of blows, a dance they haven't performed in nearly 2 decades. After the spar, they both catch their breath. Yeep admits that felt like the old days. Han Jiam collapses, reminding Yeep that 17 years is a long time to be away. He groans and stretches his aching back, complaining that training at his age is a form of torture. Yeep scoffs. That was just a warm-up, Grandpa. Stop whining. Han Jiam points out they've been at it for 8 straight hours. Yeep doesn't care. He's got a drama to catch, reminding the old man that he needs to get his stamina up or get left behind. Yeep mentions he has a meeting, so he's skipping his TV time for once. His destination? The massive, gleaming spire of the Korean Battlefield Association. Technical manager Jo Young-soo is waiting at the door. Mr. Yeep, we've been expecting you for your avatar calibration. He introduces a high-ranking official, Mr. Brown from the WBA, who's flown in specifically to oversee this special case. Before they step into the pods, Yeep holds up a hand. Wait, I got a question. He's annoyed. Why do they need to run more tests if he's already a proven legend? Young-soo explains that while they skipped the basic gym tests last time, they need the full deep scan for a permanent avatar. To make sure the digital version of him doesn't glitch under his insane power, they need a 100 accurate map of his physical limits. It's the only way to ensure the link between his brain and the avatar is seamless when the Real fight begins. Young-soo confirms the scanner maps every fiber of a player's physical build, digitizing their very essence into the avatar. He notes the tech can even unlock dormant Esper powers the user hasn't discovered yet, piquing Yeep's interest. Then Young-soo drops a lore bomb. The battlefield system is shrouded in mystery, built entirely from the unique Esper ability of one mysterious individual. Yeep scoffs at the Blue Bloods reference, accusing the association of acting like stuck-up royalty. He asks if those Blue Bloods are the ones pulling the strings at the WBA, but Young-soo denies it. Yeep barks that if they're real, they should show their faces now, a comment that sends a terrified Young-soo scurrying to start the measurements. In the testing bay, Young-soo announces they're starting with the big three: strength, agility, and aura. He tells Yeep to go all out for a perfect sync. First up is the raw power test, and Yeep approaches the heavy-duty strength machine. The moment the lever is armed, he wraps his hand around the grip, ready to crush it. Seomun Yeep puts his back into it, pulling the lever with bone-shattering force. The lever snaps back as he releases it, and the machine whirs, crunching the data. The screen flashes 813, but the techs aren't satisfied, asking him to give it another go. 2 more pulls later, and the numbers stabilize, hovering between 819 and 817. He checks his stats. A score in that range translates to a strength stat of 79. As Yeep asks what's next, Young-soo murmurs that his power is average for a hero of his caliber. Next is the Agility Gauntlet, a high-speed test where he has to tag wall switches in a frantic race against the clock. Yeep cracks his neck and settles into a low stance, ready for the buzzer. The second the light turns green, his focus narrows into a razor-sharp point. Yeep becomes a blur, flickering between the walls and tagging switches with surgical precision. The observer's jaws drop. Young-soo can't believe a tank class can move with the grace of a lightning bolt. The timer runs out, and Yeep skids to a halt in the center of the room, barely winded. He checks the board, a massive 963. He mutters that he was just getting started, and that 970 is definitely within reach, so he demands a second attempt. He finishes the second heat, and the new record blazes on the screen. 971. The room goes silent. The staff is reeling. He actually shattered the 970-point ceiling. Yeep asks who holds the world record, and Young-soo reveals a U.S. star hit 1007, making Yeep realize it must be Nathan Bernhard. He remembers the name from the scouting tapes Han Jaeum sent him to prep for the charity match. He admits he was curious because Nathan was the only one fast enough to rival Han Jaeum's prime speed. 100 agility is a god-tier rarity, not one to be outdone. Yeep decides to go for a third round, eyes set on a 975. He resets his position, standing perfectly still in the middle of the bay. He channels his focus for one final push, for some reason. On this particular day, he feels like his body and mind are in perfect, lethal harmony. The test triggers, and his eyes ignite with a terrifying glow. He teleports to the first switch. Then, he turns into a literal streak of light, bouncing between the targets at impossible speeds. The spectators can't even track him with their eyes. The measurement ends, and he stops on a dime. His chest heaves, the heat radiating off his body after that explosive sprint. The staff looks at the monitor in pure disbelief. Jo Young-soo is stammering, unable to process the numbers. Catching his breath, Yeep asks for the damage, knowing he just pushed past his limits. The panel screams 1007, matching the world record held by the fastest Esper on the planet. He's confused. His base agility is 97, which should be mathematically impossible to hit that score, since it's a hair lower than what Nathan or Han Jaeum had in their golden years. Yeep realizes that in that split second, he somehow transcended his own status window. Intrigued, he demands to retest his strength. He needs to see if this ascension is consistent. He uses the same setup as before, closing his eyes to find that inner spark of power. He grips the lever and yanks it with every ounce of muscle he possesses. The observers gasp as the numbers skyrocket. When he looks at the results, he sees 890, a massive jump from his earlier average scores. They ask if he's finally warmed up, but he just says he found a deeper level of focus. He stares at his palm, wondering if he's actually evolving past his caps, but then shakes his head. His scanner eyes show his stats haven't budged an inch, even though the output is clearly higher. The sensation is hauntingly familiar. It's a memory locked away in his soul from years ago. The feeling of being the last man standing in that final, hellish dungeon. He realizes that when his life was on the line, he tapped into a superhuman zone of concentration, a mental state that shattered his limits and overclocked his skills. He realizes focus is the key, but he feels a bit empty. He's getting stronger for no reason now, possessing godlike focus and immortality in a world with no monsters left. It's as if the universe is conspiring to drag him back to war. Finally, they move to the aura test, pointing him toward a glowing marble sphere. He places his hands on the orb, thinking it's a fancy upgrade from the old days when they just guessed aura based on weapon glow. Young-soo explains that since aura is mostly genetic, it's the gold standard for spotting the next big superstars. Yeep recalls that back when he first awakened, his aura was a 96, and he spent years fruitlessly trying to bridge that final gap to 100. He steadies his breathing and places his hands over the crystal sphere. The staff holds their breath, watching the energy readings climb at a terrifying rate. With his aura now naturally at 100, he pours his soul's energy into the device. That 100 mark is supposed to be the absolute ceiling for the human race. The measurement ends, and the sphere pulses with a color no one has seen before, brown. Thorn freezes in shock. The digital panel is reading a flat-out impossible 1030. Yeep asks for the score, and a stuttering Young-soo tells him he didn't just break the record, he obliterated it. The observers are in a state of panic. They're looking at a man who has officially surpassed human limits. Yeep just smirks, gives a cocky thumbs up, and asks, "Who did you think I was, some rookie?" Young-soo reveals the previous record holder was Xiaolon, Yeep's old teammate from the Seven Heroes, which actually surprises him. Young-soo notes he never thought that girl's record would fall, admitting her aura pool was truly monstrous. Yeep chuckles, remembering how Xiaolon's massive ego and fragile temper led them to fight like cats and dogs. The tests are wrapped, but Young-soo mentions one final administrative detail, and Yeep asks for the bad news. His immortality skill is banned from pro matches, which he expected, since being unkillable is basically a win button. The association offers a massive payout to apologize for the nerf, but Yeep tells them to keep the change. He doesn't care. He takes the cash anyway, but makes it clear he doesn't need to be immortal to win. Elsewhere, a cult leader rants to a sea of followers, claiming salvation is coming in the form of that person. He declares a new divine revelation has arrived, holding up a document like it's a holy relic. He commands the faithful to witness the face of their reborn God. The revelation is just a tabloid headline about Seomun Yeep's immortality, painting him as a literal savior. The fanatical crowd screams Yeep's name in a frenzy, vowing to prove their devotion to their living idol. Stepping out of the association building, Yeep is blocked by a massive sea of hooded weirdos. He stops in his tracks, looking around and asking, "Who are all these creeps?" The crowd roars in unison, chanting Savior, and hailing him as the hero who will cleanse the world. His aide whispers the truth. They're the Seomun Foundation, a literal cult that thinks he's a deity. Yeep repeats the name, a faint, annoying memory scratching at the back of his mind. He remembers seeing them lurking outside his hospital room, and his companion confirms they've been stalking him. He explains they believe the apocalypse is coming back, and only those who follow Yeep will survive the end times. Yeep calls them absolute lunatics, but his friend admits even he started believing it once Yeep actually rose from the dead. Now, these people just spend their days happily waiting for the world to burn so they can be saved. Yeep decides these crazies need a reality check, but his aide begs him to just ignore them and keep walking. Yeep isn't one for ignoring things. He pushes through and takes action. With a single leap, he lands atop a high perimeter wall, looming over the hooded masses like an angry god. He bellows for them to shut their mouths, the crowd. However, just keeps wailing for salvation, making him roar even louder. "Are you deaf?" Finally, a deathly silence falls over the plaza, and he scoffs better. "Now listen up." He tells the crowd he knows exactly how they feel about him, which prompts a new wave of savior. Chants. Seomun Yeep. Yeep points a finger at the mob, barking at them to stop spewing garbage and scram. He doesn't mince words, calling the whole lot of them total lunatics. The hooded fanatics freeze, looks of pure shock spreading across their faces at his blunt rejection. He demands to know if they're all unemployed, threatening to personally hunt down the Foundation leader if they don't vanish. But the cultists start whispering among themselves, convinced their savior is just testing the strength of their faith. They decide to double down on their devotion, a chilling unity forming among the group, leaving Seomun Yeep looking like he's just witnessed the world's weirdest comedy show. The plaza erupts as the crowd starts chanting his name in a rhythmic, brainwashed trance. Yeep wonders if there's a gas leak, making everyone crazy while they keep howling his name. His companion watches the chaos unfold, realizing this situation has officially gone off the rails. Yeep snaps, giving him a 10-second ultimatum. Get lost now, or I'll beat the faith right out of you. He dives headfirst into the sea of people, while his aide screams for him to stop the madness. Seconds later, the ground is littered with unconscious cultists who learn the hard way that Yeep doesn't play. Sitting on a literal throne of bodies, he grabs one kid by the collar and asks, "You still want to follow me?" The boy shakes his head frantically, sobbing his eyes out. Yeep tells him to ditch the weirdos and watch his step as he climbs down the pile. He leaps off the mound, dusting his hands off like he just finished the chores. All right, let's get back to training. His aide calls out his name, but Yeep just turns back with an annoyed "What now?" The man calls him the craziest person on earth, but Yeep just grins, taking it as a compliment before pointing at the pile. They're the ones with the problem. Worried about a media frenzy, the aide tries to usher him inside, but Yeep scoffs, saying he'll just kick out any reporter who gets too close. The elder warns that violence only breeds more hype, but Yeep reveals that's exactly how he handled the vultures digging into his past at the orphanage. Meanwhile, one of the cultists he launched into the stratosphere is literally flying over the city, still wondering if Yeep is his savior. Yeep just grumbles, cursing how obsessed people are with his private life. His companion starts to agree until he suddenly freezes in place. Yeep stops too, sensing the change. What's the matter with you? A bizarre, sinister energy is pulsing from a building in the distance. Yeep brushes it off as nothing, and the scene fades into the high-stakes chaos of a charity match at Incheon International Airport. The crowd goes wild as Joe Feldman, the legendary American field agent, makes his move. The hype is real. The world's biggest scouts are here for Yeep. Feldman muses that it's been 15 years since he set foot here, noting the U.S. agency only climbed to the top by poaching Korea's best talent. His assistant mourns the loss of Mr. Beck, a rare gem, but Feldman reminds her that the original 7 heroes didn't give a damn about pro sports back then. She mentions that the young Xiaolan showed a spark of interest once, but quit when her Esper powers took a hit. Feldman shudders at the memory of Xiaolan's avatar test. Her extinction ray was so broken she could have ended an 11v11 match in 3 seconds flat. He clenches his fist, eyes burning with greed. He won't let the world's strongest Esper slip through his fingers again. He's getting Yeep's signature. His assistant cuts him off, pointing out a hungry pack of reporters heading their way. But Feldman's eyes lock onto a rival agent approaching from the other side of the terminal. It's Hacker Arndt, the European Field Agency's heavy hitter, making a grand entrance. Feldman recognizes the vulture immediately, and the atmosphere turns cold. Arndt offers a smug greeting. Feldman warns him to keep it clean and fair this time. But inside, Feldman knows this is going to be a brutal bidding war. As cameras flash, the two titans of the scouting world stare each other down, neither willing to let the ultimate prize walk away. Watching the drama from the balcony, 2 other men exchange a look. One notes that the guy who bankrupted their dungeon empire is now trying to conquer the battlefield. The Moreau brothers, owners of the elite Paris Lumiere Club, decide they can't let Yeep just ignore them. They vow with a maniacal energy to sign him to their roster, no matter the price. Now, 3 powerful factions are locked in a 3-way standoff in the middle of the airport lobby. The tension is thick enough to cut with a blade as everyone waits for the target to appear. The battle for Seomun Yeep has begun. Suddenly, the sharp click-clack of high heels echoes through the hall, stopping everyone in their tracks. The untouchable of the continent is here. A walking, talking tactical nuke has just entered the building. Xiaolan, the youngest of the 7 heroes, announces she's only here to find a certain guy she knows. At the stadium, fireworks light up the sky as fans pack the stands to witness history. Inside, a grumpy spectator complains about the crowd size, but his friend tells him to shut it and enjoy the show. It's the event of the century. A sleek black limousine pulls up to the red carpet, and the cameras go into a frenzy. Inside, Yeep just shrugs, saying he'll give it a thought. Then, the door opens. Seo-mun Yeep steps out, looking like a total boss as he struts down the red carpet. He smirks at the flashing lights. All right, let's see if this sport can actually keep me entertained. While the fans scream his name, Han Jae-im wonders how a jerk like Yeep can be so popular. Yeep just laughs, giving Han Jae-im credit for polishing the stone so he didn't look like a bum. The press corps swarms them, begging for just one quote from the two legendary heroes. Han Jae-im shoves Yeep toward the microphones, whispering for him to keep his foot out of his mouth. Yeep is already annoyed, feeling like a piece of meat, while a reporter asks about his assault on his own cult followers. The questions fly fast, about his temper, his expectations for the match, and the shocking arrival of Shilon. Yeep's heart skips a beat at her name. The reporter confirms she's in town specifically for this match. Yeep's mind races, why now? The reporter adds that she's looking for a special guy who's competing today. A cold sweat breaks out as he realizes that guy is almost certainly him. He punches the wall in the locker room hallway, his face a mask of regret. Other players whisper as he passes, realizing the statue has come to life and wondering if his skills match the myth. Ifain Sang-yeom, did you hear? The storm is coming. Yeep tells him Shilon is here, and Han Jae-im just sighs. The day of reckoning has arrived. A teammate tells Yeep he'd better start sleeping with his shield. Yeep tries to play it off, but Han Jae-im reminds him that he didn't just bully her. He used to make her cry on a regular. Yeep hopes she isn't the type to hold a 17-year grudge, but he's terrified of her extinction ray. Han Jae-im isn't helpful. He bluntly points out that Yeep was an absolute nightmare to her back in the day. The memory hits him. 17 years ago, during the peak of the war, the Chinese prodigy, Shilon, was the baby of the 7 heroes picked for the final, world-ending raid. As a rich, pampered genius with god-tier powers, she was the crown jewel of her government. At 17, she was treated like a living goddess, never hearing the word no. But Yeep couldn't stand her weak mindset. He hated people who cried instead of getting the job done. So he tore into her. He'd scream at her to use her brain, asking if her head was just for looks. He'd poke and prod, mocking her for freezing up when the pressure was on. He told her a headless chicken was more useful and that she was wasting her potential. The poor girl could only tremble under his verbal lashing. Back in the locker room, Han Jae-im and the others shake their heads. Buddy, you're dead. We're gonna need a second funeral. Han Jae-im tells him to worry about his life later. They've got a match to win. He gathers the squad, calling for everyone to lock in. He starts the briefing, assuming the pros know the drill for a charity exhibition. But since Yeep is essentially a fossil, Han Jae-im gives a quick rundown of the rules. It's Team Love versus Team Hope, a classic showdown for the fans. Team Love is the cream of the national crop. Team Hope is a wild card squad, except for the ace, Ayun. To balance things out, Coach Han Jae-im himself is suiting up to play for Team Hope. And of course, Seo-mun Yeep is the team's secret weapon. Han Jae-im admits he's a bit rusty and asks the kids to go easy on the old man. Team Hope's captain, Park Chul-ho, promises they'll carry their weight. Yeep just scoffs, knowing a rusty Han Jae-im is still light years ahead of these rookies. He activates his scanner eyes, checking the stats for Han Jae-im and Ayun. He concludes that the 3 of them are a god-tier core. They'll be just fine. The rest of the team? Total fodder. Not even worth the mana. But then, his eyes lock onto one particular player in the back. He scans Choi Yuk while the rookie nervously asks the coach for guidance. His stats reveal focused aura, perfect for rapid strike weapons, and reinforced durability. His match strength is a solid 90. Not bad. Yeep sees a diamond in the rough. He calls him over, thinking he's got the making of a top-tier tank. Choi Yuk introduces himself properly, claiming his role is a close-range dealer. Seo-mun Yeep does a double take, and the rookie proudly stands tall, claiming he's the star close-range dealer from Samson Spirits. He sighs, explaining he dreamed of being a legendary tank like Yeep, but his compact height forced him into the dealer role instead. When asked about his powers, Choi Yuk says he just infuses aura into his blade, and that's it. Yeep immediately puts 2 and 2 together. The kid hasn't even realized he possesses reinforced durability yet, which is why he's stuck as a dealer. In a flashback, a narrow-minded coach tells a young Choi Yuk he's too small for the front lines and should stick to being a fast-moving dealer. The man ignores the kid's potential and locks him into the dealer slot. Back in the present, Yi barks at Ayun to fetch a shield, and she teleports back with one before he can even blink. He shoves a massive shield that looks like a giant pot lid into Choi Yuk's hands. No time for pleasantries. Yeep starts a crash course in tanking 101, ordering the kid to glue the shield to his chest while cycling through attacks. The boy tries to protest that he's a dealer, but Yeep shuts him down with a glare that could freeze a volcano. You talking back to me, kid? The rest of the team stands there frozen, horrified that Yeep just force-swapped a pro's position like it was a video game. Choi Yuk looks at Han Jae-im with help me eyes, but the coach just plays it cool and stays silent. Han Jae-im acts like he didn't see a thing and finalizes the lineup. For tanks, 6 dealers and 1 support. Realizing his coach has tossed him to the wolves, Choi Yuk falls into despair as the order comes for everyone to suit up. Yeep is stunned by the featherlight modern armor. Han Jae-im assures him it's just as tough as the old-school junk and asks for a fit check. Han Jae-im asks for his thoughts, and Yeep admits it feels surreal. He never expected to wear a sports uniform in this lifetime. Han Jae-im promises the weapons are top tier, featuring only minor tweaks to the original specs. Then, Seomun Yeep gives his new shield a professional inspection. He's impressed by the spear's balance, and Han Jae-im notes the blacksmiths pulled out all the stops for these replicas. Han Jae-im gets sentimental, calling them world-saving relics, but Yeep keeps it real. These are made in a factory less than a year ago, buddy. The coach warns him not to get cocky. He might have slain monsters and blue bloods. But these players have spent their lives training to kill humans and have way more tactical game experience. Yeep flashes a wicked grin. Message received, Coach Beck. I'll keep that in mind. He gives a confident thumbs up, itching to see what these modern pros are made of. The stands are absolutely vibrating with hype. The big screen lights up. Team Hope versus Team Love. It's finally time for the showdown. As the teams face off, one player notes that the national selection squad has a terrifyingly different aura when you're standing right in front of them. Yeep scans the opposition. They've got higher average stats, but to him, they look like basic cookie-cutter soldiers with no X factor. He asks Han Jae-im if they just recruit based on test scores, and the coach confirms they use a multi-category grading system. A teammate explains that because they focus on balanced grades, the opposing team lacks any specialists with god-tier talent in one specific field. Suddenly, Yeep's gaze locks onto a specific target in the enemy lineup. He spots a punk-looking guy casually chewing gum right in the middle of the national team. His scanner reveals the kid has decent stats across the board, but his concentration level is absolute garbage. He wonders if this kid is just another pampered brat who's had everything handed to him. The young man steps up, sneering at Yeep and asking, "What are you staring at, old man?" The brat realizes he's talking to the legendary Seomun Yeep. He recalls how much he hated Yeep's expert commentary during the match against the U.S. Back then, he bragged that Yeep was a fossil who didn't even understand how the modern game worked. Yeep taps a teammate on the shoulder, asking to switch spots for a moment. He walks right up to Shim Jun-soo and notes that the kid seems to have a massive chip on his shoulder. The boy doubles down, mocking Yeep for acting like a pro when he's never set foot in the arena, but Yeep just lets out a dry, mocking laugh. The rookie bristles. "What's so funny, fossil?" Yeep casually asks what the kid's father does for a living, and Jun-soo brags that he's the vice president of the association. The buzzer sounds, calling all players to the field of battle. Yeep calls him Yuppie and tells him to move it, but the kid stops him, fuming over the nickname and the personal question. Yeep smirks. "I was just curious what kind of dad raises such a spineless, idiotic prick." He drops the act, revealing his rough past gave him a zero-tolerance policy for soft, spoiled brats. With a final, offensive gesture, he tells the kid that he's actually motivated to play now, just so he can personally bury him. The announcer's voice booms as Seomun Yeep's name rings through the rafters like a thunderclap. The hype reaches its boiling point. The legend is finally back on the field as an active player. The narrator notes that despite being an exhibition, the viewership numbers are shattering every record in history. The VIP section is a who's who of the world. Gerald Walker, Joe Feldman, and Hacker Arndt are all eyes on the prize. Shilon and the Moreau brothers watch with bated breath as the first set of the charity match officially begins. The battlefield is revealed, the spiral cave of Asa. It's a treacherous dungeon with 3 layered circular zones and a hidden shortcut, crawling with deadly skeleton arachnids and venomous serpents. It's the showdown of the ages, the modern national team versus the legendary hero of the past. 10 minutes before the clock starts, Han Jae-im gathers his team for the tactical breakdown. He explains they're spawning in Zone 5, while Team Love starts at the polar opposite in Zone 1. The main squad will farm in 5-2, while Yeep is sent on a solo mission to 5-3 to assassinate the serpent boss alone. Killing the serpent triggers an area collapse, so they need to time it perfectly. Yeep just nods, saying he'll keep it casual. After the boss is down, they'll blitz Zone 6 and take the hidden passage to the center. That's where they'll clash with the enemy. The core trio, Ayun, Hanjayam, and Yeep, will hold the line. To Yeep, this plan feels cowardly and tactical. He'd rather just charge in and end it. But in a best-of-3, he realizes he can use the first round to scout the arena and map out the modern meta. The countdown ends, and Team Hope spawns inside the damp, dark tunnels of Zone 5-1. The captain barks orders for everyone to lock into their starting formations. Baek Ayun, the team's heavy-hitting backline dealer, readies her weapon. Han Gyeom, playing the flex dealer/support, and Seomun Yeep, the unshakable frontline tank. Brace for the first wave. The rest of the tanks, including a terrified Choi Yuk, line up behind the legend. Yeep looks around the cave and whispers, "It's been a long time, old friend." A teammate points upward. The ceiling is a literal carpet of twitching, hungry spiders. Thousands of arachnid eyes gleam in the shadows. Meanwhile, in Zone 1-1, Team Love begins their own systematic call. Team Love's captain, Chai Bo-yoon, gives the signal, and Junsu lunges at the nearest spider. Junsu unleashes a flashy attack, aiming to show off for the cameras. The strike connects, slamming the monster into the cave floor with a satisfying crunch. Shim Junsu, Team Love star dealer, resets his stance with a cocky smirk after the kill. The entire world is focused on the inevitable collision between the brat Junsu and the legend Yeep. Junsu scoffs, wondering if the 7 heroes were just a bunch of overhyped seniors as another monster dies behind him. He goes on a rampage, screaming die, as he carves through the mobs, vowing that Seomun Yeep's legendary run ends today by his hand. Back in Zone 5, Yeep signals Hanjayam. Time to show these kids how it's really done. He becomes a blur of motion, charging through the battlefield like a freight train. He takes a massive leap, soaring through the air with zero hesitation. He becomes a whirlwind of steel, spinning through a crowd of monsters and leaving a trail of limbs in his wake. Hanjayam follows up with a surgical strike. A monster sprays venom, and he warns Yeep that he's falling into a trap, but Yeep hurls his shield toward the ground, using the heavy metal plate as a mid-air platform to defy gravity and reset his position. Got it, he barks. Hanjayam doesn't miss a beat, diving back into the fray and carving through the surrounding monsters with elite precision. The commentators are losing their minds. They're witnessing the return of the world's most legendary duo. The crowd roars as the two legends annihilate a swarm of arachnids that would take a normal team an hour to clear. Hanjayam clears the last of the ceiling mobs, grumbling about how his back isn't as young as it used to be. More spiders crawl out of the crevices, and he asks Yeep if they should just keep the party going. The two heroes move in perfect sync, a lethal dance that hasn't lost its edge in 17 years. Choi Yuk watches them, mesmerized. Those spiders have shells like steel, making most attacks bounce off. Yet Seomun Yeep is crushing them like they're made of paper. He doesn't miss a beat, blitzing toward his next objective. He adjusts his grip, clenching his spear with lethal intent. Choi Yuk watches in awe, realizing the legend is finally tapping into his hidden skills. The rookie decides to gamble on focused aura with his own shield. It's a bit clunky for his first time, but he charges forward anyway to test his new power on a stray monster. Closing the distance, he slams into the creature with everything he's got. He holds a line, absorbing a nasty counterattack using the focused aura buffer. Seomun Yeep watches the kids struggle from the sidelines with a satisfied smirk. He scoffs, realizing he can't let the rookie have all the fun. Suddenly, a massive alpha monster roars into the fray, lunging at him. Yeep doesn't flinch, catching the beast's crushing blow on his shield. With a lightning-fast counterthrust, he drives his spear straight through the monster's heart. The beast recoils, its massive frame trembling from the sheer impact of the strike. With one fluid, violent motion, he rips the spear out, pulverizing the creature's torso. The Moro brothers in the VIP box practically jump out of their seats in excitement. They recognize the move instantly. The 100-centimeter thrust, Yeep's legendary signature. Shilon just nods. She explains that while it looks like a basic poke, the secret is in the speed. He actually fires the spear like a projectile at maximum velocity and snatches it back, before it can travel more than a single meter. The result? A localized kinetic explosion that hits harder than any physical muscle could manage. The timing is so tight that a single millisecond of lag would mean losing his weapon. Yet he pulls it off as effortlessly as drawing breath. Xiaolon huffs, muttering that even after 17 years, Seomun Yeep is still the most annoying genius she's ever met. As another mob falls, Yeep checks in with Han Jiam to see if his sector is already a graveyard. A monster tries to sneak up on Choi Yuk's blind spot, but the rookie senses the danger. Yeep teleports in, intercepting the blow with a metallic clang, muttering that he needs to wrap this up immediately. He vaults over the creature's head, bringing his spear down for the execution. "I've got show to watch," Yeep grumbles. "I can't be late for my drama." Zone 5-1 is officially cleared, and the captain gives the squad a quick good job. He turns to give the next order, only to find a cloud of dust where Yeep was standing. Choi Yuk points toward the boss room. He already headed to 5-3. Told us to keep up if we can. The captain just sighs. Yeep is a wild cannon, but his instincts are never wrong. He signals the rest of the team to double time it to zone 5-2. Cut to zone 5-3, where the very air is vibrating with killing intent. Yeep stands face to face with the serpent boss, casually noting that their last dance feels like it was only yesterday. He levels his spear, the air around him beginning to ripple. His focus locks onto the beast, ignoring everything but the kill. With a smirk, he dares the monster to show him what it's got. The serpent strikes like a whip, a direct, high-velocity lunge. Yeep hits the deck, sliding across the cavern floor to find the perfect angle. He digs his heels in and plants his shield, becoming an immovable object against the monster's force. He absorbs the shock and explodes upward with a devastating shield bash. The strike connects right under the serpent's jaw, sending its head snapping back. Yeep doesn't let up, his face a mask of cold determination as he hammers the boss. He pauses for a second, looking back at the entrance. "What took you guys so long?" He notes the team looks like they've been through a marathon just to get there. The squad stares in shock. He's standing on the serpent's corpse, having soloed a boss in minutes. He reminds them that the game is about farming points to power up, and they're lagging behind. He leaves the scraps for the team and starts walking toward the exit. He beckons for Han Jiam and Ayun to follow him. "Come on, the real show's starting." Yeep reveals he's cooked up a plan that's going to turn the match upside down. The trio breaks away, ghosting through the dungeon toward Team Love's territory while avoiding any unnecessary fights. Yeep laughs, mentioning the serpent almost folded from a single well-placed hit. He analyzes the points. Since they didn't farm the small fry, they're technically underpowered right now. Han Jiam wonders if Yeep's 110 concentration is just carrying them. He's nervous, begging Yeep to spill the plan since they're about to run into the national selection. Yeep explains the target is Jun Soo, great talent, but a total mental glass cannon. He says if the brat is there, the plan is simple. If not, he'll have to improvise based on what he sees. In Zone 12, Team Love is wrapping up their farm. Captain Chai Bo-Yun splits her forces, sending units to Zones 9 and 11 to pincer the competition. She gives the order to move out. In Zone 9, a 5-man squad of elites begins clearing mobs with surgical efficiency. Shim Jun-soo obliterates a monster, his attacks flashier than ever. He's feeling himself, bragging that his farm-first strategy is paying dividends. He tells the heir to tell Yeep he's coming for him, ordering his squad to advance to the next zone. He's convinced he can one-shot the legend, but a teammate shouts a warning of something fast approaching. Too late, a shield comes flying out of nowhere, slamming into Jun-soo and sending him tumbling back. Wiping blood from his lip, he realizes a spear just grazed his cheek. It wasn't a mistake, it was an ambush. He realizes Team Hope isn't playing by the book. They've walked right into a trap. Over in Zone 11, the rest of Team Love is stunned to see Seomun Yeep materialize right in front of them. A brutal surprise attack catches the national team members completely off guard. Yeep's squad appears from the shadows behind the disoriented players. The entire battlefield is in chaos. Flashback. Yeep tells his team to take the long way around to flank the enemy after he kills the boss. He orders them to engage the pros directly, promising to be their guardian angel. The team charges with newfound fire. Han Jiam sees the spear throw was blocked, but Yeep tells him to take it easy on the kids. Then, Yeep gets a wild idea and asks Han Jiam if he wants to fly. Before the coach can answer, Yeep launches him through the air like a human missile. A second later, he hurls his shield right behind him, the metal plate slicing through the air on the exact same line. Han Jiam snatches the shield in midair, turning himself into a guided bomb. Team Love's captain realizes the target is Jun-soo and screams for a defensive wall. The squad piles on to protect their VIP brat. But it was a feint. Han Jiam teleports at the last second, slamming into Team Love's defenseless tanks. A player screams to focus the coach down before his skills refresh, but Han Jiam is already caught in a crossfire. Ayun shouts for her dad and snags him out of the fire with her whip. She dives into the fray, her whip snapping like a crack of thunder as she makes her entrance. She uses the momentum to swing through the air like an acrobat. Yeep reappears in a flash, parrying a killing blow aimed at Han Jiam. He asks his buddy if that was a thrill ride, but Han Jiam just gives him a shut-up look. Yeep grins. The enemy tanks are already out of the picture. The legendary trio regroup, and Yeep notes it's a fair 3-on-3 now. The remaining Team Love players are sweating, realizing they've been played. Yeep casually suggests they each pick a dance partner. Shim Jun-soo, fuming, accepts the challenge. The stadium is shaking from the crowd's reaction to that insane combo play. The casters are losing their minds over the fake-out on Jun-soo's strategy that crippled the national team. They also spotlight Yeep's spear control, how he manipulated a projectile to save his teammate. The narrator calls him a tactical genius who turns basic skills into masterworks. Meanwhile, Yeep hurls Han Jiam into action again. Ayun is a blur, chasing down Jun-soo while the last Team Love player tries to peel her off. Nathan Bernhard tries to intervene, but Ayun vaults over the attack. Suddenly, Yeep is a shadow behind Jun-soo. He delivers a brutal shield smash right to the kid's face. He follows up by spinning the shield into Jun-soo's skull, sending the brat eating dirt. Yeep looms over the fallen pro like a nightmare. Team Love realizes 5 of their best have been deleted from the map. Chai Bo-yoon is in denial. How did they lose 5 people that fast? Frustrated, she screams for an all-out counteroffensive to save the set. Choi-yuk steps up to block a veteran. Flashback. Yeep teaching the rookie how to actually use a shield. Back to reality. Choi-yuk executes the move perfectly, stonewalling the pro's attack. The Team Love player thinks he sees an opening, but Choi-yuk is too fast, dodging the flurry of strikes. Chai Bo-yoon can't believe this fake tank has a defense this solid. She charges in to finish the rookie herself. As she lunges for the kill, Yeep steps in and deletes her from the game with a single, blinding strike. Yeep ruffles Choi-yuk's hair, telling him to take 5 while the adults finish up. He promises to end this in 5 minutes, so they can all go home. Set 1 ends. Team Hope 8, Team Love 0. A total shutout. Han Jiam is named MVP. A rookie runs into the locker room, raving about the coach's insane moves. The players swarm Han Jiam, telling him he needs to come out of retirement. He's blushing, admitting it was fun to dust off the old gear after 17 years. Han Jiam looks at Yeep, who's chilling in the corner. He knows none of this would have happened without Yeep's shadow work. Yeep is busy watching a drama on his phone, muttering about how the plot is unrealistic. Meanwhile, the casters hype up Set 2, the Labyrinth of the Damned. It's a nightmare map of stairs and traps, the very place that killed dozens of espers before Yeep conquered it. The teams march in. The world wants to see who survives the maze. Chai Bo-yoon is glaring daggers at Yeep, but he just sighs. Since he came back, it's just been one annoying person after another. He thinks about the vultures in the press, the cultists, and kids like Jun-soo. Everyone wants a piece of him. Yeep snaps on his visor, a dangerous glint in his eye. Fine. You want a show? I'll give you a horror movie. At the spawn point, Han Jiam starts a tactical lecture on the maze's layout. Yeep cuts him off. I'm going solo. You guys figure the rest out. Han Jiam asks if he still remembers the way. Yeep just scoffs. He's the one who mapped this hellhole in the first place. For Yeep, it's only been a year. For everyone else, the maze is a legend. He tells the team to brace themselves because he's done holding back. He knows exactly where Team Love is heading and disappears into the tunnels at breakneck speed. Ayun is worried, but Han Jiam tells her Yeep is the king of dungeons. He's confident Yeep has a master plan, but secretly, he's wondering if Yeep is just winging it. Yeep is already a blur in the corridors, parrying traps with his shield and sliding under skeleton attacks. 2 elite skeleton warriors rise from the ground. Yeet pauses, a nostalgic grin on his face. Hey guys, missed me? He dives into the skeletons, smashing one with his shield and skewering another in midair. He lands, blocks two more with a single motion, and keeps running. A giant skeleton slams into him from behind, launching him like a cannonball. Yeep is flying through a gravity-distorted zone where the floor is missing. He hits a wall runs to a beam, and swings forward with insane momentum. He's smiling. This glitching gravity is the perfect shortcut. He lands with a heavy thud right in front of Team Love. The pros freeze. They haven't even been in the dungeon for 10 minutes, and he's already found them. Yeep tells them he's seen enough of their pro moves to know how this ends. He levels his spear as the dust settles around him. All right, you mediocre kids. Time to meet your maker. Chai Boyin tries to keep her team together, screaming for a tactical retreat. She's convinced Yeep brought backup, and they're about to be pincered. Yeep laughs as he chases them. They're dead wrong about the backup, but he'll let them run a bit longer just for the entertainment value. His scanner eyes lock onto the fleeing targets. He picks them apart one by one. He finds an opening and hurls his spear, a perfect headshot that deletes a player instantly. One down, the system drones. Yeep reaches out, wishing he could pull the spear back, but realizes the rest of the squad has already vanished. He looks at the rafters and decides to take the high ground. Team Love stops to catch their breath. Chai Bo-Yun is fuming, but a teammate suggests they should have just ganged up on him. She barks that they can't risk it without knowing where the rest of Team Hope is. On the floor above, Yeep is tracking their heartbeats through the stone. He calculates their position and smiles. A 50 guess is better than a 0 chance. He grips his spare spear and whispers love. He winds up and hurls it through the floorboards with a roar. Love returns. The spear drills through the ceiling like a railgun shot. It shatters the stone and impales a player in the middle of the group. Chai Bo-Yun stares at the vibrating spear in the ground, her mind blank. Where did that even come from? The casters are screaming. It's the most illegal-looking elimination in the history of the league. Yeep just chuckles to himself. 50 chance? I'll take those odds. The stadium is in a frenzy as the smoke clears. Shim Junsu snaps, refusing to run anymore. He's convinced Yeep is alone and wants a piece of him. Chai Bo-Yun tries to play it safe, but Junsu is tired of being the hunted. He demands a fight. Suddenly, Yeep's voice drops from a beam right above them. Still arguing? You guys are even more pathetic than I thought. Burn him to a crisp, but his teammates tell him to watch his mana. The brat doesn't listen, his hand exploding into a pillar of flame. He fires a massive blast at the rafters. The wall explodes, but Yeep is already gone. Over here, genius. Yeep's voice echoes from the opposite side. He calls Junsu's acting amateur hour and disappears again before they can react. Junsu is reeling. How did he block or dodge a full power blast that easily? A teammate notes that Junsu's firepower is big league level, meaning Yeep's defense is just wrong. Chai Bo-Yun finally agrees. Yeep has to die first. She sends her 3 best damage dealers on a west path flanking maneuver. The goal: bait him, surround him, and end the legend. The narrator notes that catching Yeep in this maze is like trying to catch smoke with your hands. Yeep watches the 3 stealthy players approaching. Predictable. Boring. Disappointing. He drops down right in the middle of them. The shockwave of his landing forces the elite damage dealers back. Yeep notes their reaction time is okay, but that's about it. To him, these elites are just fresh meat. He grabs the first one and slams him into a stone pillar so hard the system announces the elimination instantly. He doesn't stop. Using the 100-centimeter thrust, he hurls the first corpse into the second player, deleting them both in a chaotic collision. Yeep turns to the last guy. Your turn. The player is shaking so hard he drops his weapon. He turns tail and runs, but Yeep's spear is faster. Elimination number 5. Yeep counts them down. Only 6 left. Guess I'll finish this in one go. The fans are losing it. He just wiped 3 pros in under 60 seconds. Even the VIPs are speechless. The Moreau brothers realize that the debate between the old heroes and new pros is officially over. Shilon smiles. The king is definitely back. Han Jiam pings him on the comms, asking about the kill feed. Yeep just says his aura is in the red zone, and he's feeling good. Han Jiam says they're coming to help at zone 3-1, but Yeep tells him not to bother. It'll be over before you get here. I'm going to actually fight now. He cuts the comms and vanishes. He corners the remains of Team Love and greets them with a terrifying smile. Chai Bo-Yun orders a desperate dispersion, but Yeep knows their game. He watches them scramble to surround him, but he's already calculated their move. He knows the fastest one will strike first. A player triggers instant acceleration, becoming a blur for 30 seconds. Yeep blocks the unblockable speed strike with ease. He notes that while the kid is fast, his brain is still moving at rookie speeds. With a single, heavy counterblow, the speedster is out. Chai Boyan screams for Junsu to use his blast sphere. The kid lets out a barrage of fire, masking the field in smoke. Another player, Hyun, dives into the smoke to finish the blinded Yeep. Big mistake. Yeep drops from the ceiling like a predator, deleting Hyun instantly. The last few players are paralyzed. Yeep picks up 2 spears from the ground. In 2 fluid motions, he snipes the next 2 targets. Only 2 left. He walks toward them, spear trailing on the ground. Chai Boyun and Junsu are backed into a corner, shaking. The captain realizes this is a slaughter. Yeep notes her deceleration skill is decent, but she's just too slow for the world stage. He turns to Junsu, who's whimpering. Yeep doesn't wait. He lunges at the captain, deleting her in a heartbeat. 10 down. He looks at Junsu. Just you and me. Yuppie. Junsu is begging him to stay back, but Yeep charges with his shield up. The impact is like a car crash. He slams the brat into the dirt, and the system confirms the final kill. All kill. The stadium is dead silent for a heartbeat before exploding into pure madness. It's the first all-kill in the history of the Korean League, and it was done by a single man. The experts are eating their words. Yeep didn't need time to adjust. He came to dominate. He and Han Jae-im walk out to a standing ovation. Yeep points at a drone, asking what the hell it is. Han Jae-im explains it's a camera, and the feed is live on the big screens. Seeing his own face, Yeep does the most Yeep thing possible. He flips the bird to the entire world. Han Jae-im panics, dragging him away, but Yeep is just laughing. MVP interview time. Han Jae-im groans. Reporter Lee Young-eun is waiting, trying to stay professional. She asks Han Jae-im if he expected this. He says no. He was bullied into playing by Yeep, but his muscles still remember the war. Then she turns to the man of the hour. Did you expect the all-kill? Yeep shrugs. Piece of cake. I spent the first set sleeping. I actually tried in the second. When asked for advice for the national team, Yeep doesn't hold back. He calls their tactics trash and says they don't even know how to use their own skills. He doesn't blame the coach. He blames the lack of high-level leadership. Would he lead them? Maybe. For the right price. It's a capitalist world, baby. In the car afterward, Han Jae-im tells him they're headed to the after-party. Yeep just wants to watch his drama, but he's stuck. He asks Han Jae-im why he's even a coach if he's so pressured by it. Han Jae-im admits he thought he could do it because he learned from the best. Yeep notes that the country's coaching is a joke and offers some free advice to his friend. He tells him to move Choi Yuk to tank, fire the vice president's son, and rearrange the backline. Han Jae-im is terrified of the political fallout of firing Junsu, but Yeep reminds him who they are. You're a hero, not a politician. The kid has zero focus. He's the reason they lost. He tells Han Jae-im to tell the association that if they want his real help, they better bring a massive paycheck. They arrive at the Hunter's Hotel, and the party is already in full swing. Ayun runs up, offering her uncle some vodka. He's impressed. She knows his brand. She admits she studied up on him. Han Jae-im heads off to find the president. A guest mutters that they can finally drink now that the troublemaker is gone. But Yeep is the center of the room. Joe Feldman is lurking, wanting to sign him but afraid to offend him. He decides to wait. Suddenly, Hacker Arndt beats him to it. Yeep recognizes the European scout immediately. Arndt hands over a business card, telling Yeep to call him if he wants to play in the big leagues. Yeep says he'll think about it. Ayun is shocked at her uncle's perfect English. He tells her he traveled the world while she was still in diapers. Joe Feldman sees his opening as Arndt leaves, but he's shoved aside by the Moreau brothers. They swarm Yeep in English and French, hailing him as the god of espers. Yeep just smirks. The Paris brothers, huh? I remember you.